Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. He's been looking for someone to team up with, though he's not too keen on subjugation missions. Myra wasn't sure if Rhodes would want to do this mission, but teaming up with Natsu seemed somewhat reassuring. Maybe? Natsu thought about it. Rhodes recently seems to have summoned some interesting creatures. Happy objected. But he can't summon fish. Isn't there a crab? Natsu clapped his hands and turned to leave. Decided, let's go find Rhodes. Happy hurried to catch up, calling out. Natsu. A crab isn't the same as a fish. Fairy Tale Guild tip, during break time, Rhodes is either in the backyard or the library. Finding him is easy. Rhodes. You in here? I can smell you. Natsu's loud voice echoed in the library. Natsu? Stop shouting, this is the library. Rhodes closed the magic encyclopedia he was reading and put it down on the table. And what do you mean by smell me? Do I smell that bad? Natsu answered matter-of-factly. Smell is smell. Anyway, come team up with us. Happy added. Natsu's nose is very sharp. Rhodes recalled what was mentioned last time regarding Warren. Natsu's sense of smell was indeed quite good. Alright. He didn't dwell on it and asked. What's this team up about? There's an interesting mission, and Myra said it would be better to have a reliable person to team up with. The most reliable mage still in the guild right now is Rhodes. Happy exaggeratedly said. Even though you can't summon fish. MMPH. Natsu hugged Happy, covering his mouth. Yeah, Rhodes is the most reliable. It felt good to be called reliable, but something seemed fishy. Since when was Natsu this well-spoken? Oh well, since you guys say so, then I'll. Rhodes looked at Natsu and Happy's expectant eyes. I'll go ask Myra for the details. Happy sighed in Natsu's arms. How lame. Natsu complained. Happy, your strategy didn't work at all. It must be because Natsu wasn't sincere enough. No way, it's because you said he couldn't summon fish. Hey, pushing the blame on me, Natsu, that's too much. I heard all of that, you too. Rhodes couldn't help laughing. Isn't Natsu supposed to be hot-blooded and impulsive? How come these two even use tricks to get someone to join their team? And they were scheming right in front of him. I do want to try teaming up with you two. Anyway, let me just confirm the mission details first. Rhodes marked his page, closed the book, put it back, and then followed Natsu and Happy out. The mission location is in Drumroll village. It's a small mountain village less than half a day's carriage ride from Magnolia. I heard that in recent years, the village has had abundant harvests, but there are many ferocious beasts on the nearby mountain. Recently, these beasts have been coming down the mountain, charging and causing chaos. The hunters in the village can't handle these wild animals, making the villagers afraid to go out and harvest their crops. If it continues like this, the crops will rot, and the villagers will be in danger. Myra explained while watching Rhodes's expression, and upon seeing no special reaction to the term beast horde, she relaxed. So, what do you think? Are you taking this mission? Rhodes didn't rush to decide but instead asked, are there only ordinary beasts in the horde? Myra answered, for now, yes. But villagers have seen a beast that looks like the leader of the horde giving orders on the mountain, although it hasn't come down. Natsu urged impatiently, Rhodes, how long are you gonna keep asking? Beasts and all, just punch them all away, right? He was starting to think that Rhodes, like their other guildmates, had some strange quirks. Almost done. Rhodes continued asking questions until Myra had shared everything she knew about Drumroll village. Only then did he stop. He thought for a moment, alright, I'll take it. Natsu. Natsu? Natsu was sleeping soundly, leaning against the counter with his arms as a pillow. Happy popped Natsu's snot bubble. Natsu? Rhodes agreed. Natsu jolted awake, jumping up from the stool. Alright, let's go. Rhodes was a bit envious. Being able to wake up and instantly be energized was something to admire. Myra registered the mission, handed the request sheet to Natsu. Be careful on the road. It's Rhodes' first time on a mission like this, so it'll be up to you and Happy to take care of him. Leave it to me. Natsu accepted without hesitation. The guild master often entrusted newcomers to experienced mages for a while. But Rhodes, joining the guild for almost 2 months and only going on one mission, was rare. Happy looked at Myra, then at Rhodes, and whispered, "They've got something going on," rolling tongue. "Happy?" Myra gave Happy a gentle smile. "I." Happy hid behind Natsu, pretending to be scared. "Sorry. Rhodes? What's there to fear about Myra?" Chapter 65, What Should I Do? Rhodes chose to take this mission after careful consideration. First was the reward. 300,000 J split among 3 people meant 100,000 J each. Happy was an official fairy tale mage, marked with the guild emblem, and he contributed during missions, so he was entitled to a share of the money. This amount would relieve Rhodes of the rent issue, and even let him live comfortably for the next month. Next was safety. Based on the information Myra provided, the mission wasn't too dangerous. Plus, teaming up with Natsu provided a good level of security. It was just dealing with some wild beasts, nothing too big of a problem. Rhodes could already picture the 100,000 J waving at him. Assuming Natsu didn't do something crazy again, like accidentally destroying the village. This was something to keep an eye on. With the formalities of accepting the mission complete, the trio split up. Natsu went home to gather his things, Happy went to rent a carriage, and Rhodes also needed to get his gear and do a little bit of preparation. Even when in a team, one couldn't afford to be careless. Myra watched as Rhodes walked towards the warehouse and said helplessly, "You're borrowing things again?" Rhodes smiled sheepishly. "Better be safe than sorry, right?" Myra corrected him. "It's called being prepared for a rainy day." "Oh, right." Myra wanted to say it wasn't necessary, but considering that this was Rhodes' first subjugation mission, she let him be. A few minutes later, Rhodes returned empty-handed, with a somewhat dejected expression. "What happened?" Myra asked. "The master wouldn't open the warehouse door. He said with Natsu already being dangerous enough, taking any explosive magic crystals would make the village disappear." Rhodes looked slightly hurt. "They're for self-defense, not for causing terror." Myra couldn't help but laugh. "Please make sure to keep Natsu in check and don't let him cause trouble." "Got it." Rhodes waved his hand. "I'm off. Take care." Once Rhodes stepped out of the guild hall, Myra turned her gaze back. Loki jumped onto Myra, mimicking Myra's tone. "Take care. On the road." Myra scolded. "Loki, what are you up to now?" "It's not about what I'm up to, it's about what you're up to." Myra Loki lowered her voice. "How's it going between you and Rhodes?" "What? Love? Romance?" Loki clasped her hands together, a dreamy expression on her face, saying, "The talented new member of the guild and the guild's leading lady spending time together, falling in love during a protection mission. And then, he trains hard to protect her, works tirelessly to take care of her, their feelings for each other progressing rapidly until they finally walk down the aisle. Ah, such a romantic love story." Myra sighed. "Don't make stuff up, and your sequence of events and cause and effect are all messed up. Beautiful poetry always requires a little editing of life's rhythm." Loki reasoned. "By the way, Myra, surely you've noticed, right? The way Rhodes looks at you is different from the way he looks at others." Myra gently shook her head. "It's probably just gratitude for some help I gave him before." Loki disagreed. "No way, when Levi and I lent Rhodes stuff and answered his questions, we saw the grateful look too. It wasn't like that. It wasn't sparkling. Don't say any more, there are customers wanting drinks over there, hurry and go." Yes, Loki left, and Myra lowered her gaze. Even Loki said so. During the celebration the other day, Jenny had told Myra backstage, "You should know how much dating affects us as gravure models, right? Popularity would drop drastically." Popularity wasn't important to her, the real issue was herself. Myra wasn't a clueless young girl. She could sense Rhodes's feelings for her. Part of it was gratitude, part of it was companionship, and another part that seemed impossible. Rhodes was the best new recruit, not just this year but in recent years. The master even called him a summoning magic genius. In just a short time, he'd learned to maintain a large number of summoned creatures simultaneously. He was meticulous and cautious, practiced diligently every day, and whenever he faced setbacks, he just kept pushing on. But what about herself? Impulsive, overconfident after passing the S-class exam, she arrogantly led her siblings into an adventure. And in the end, Elfman had to risk his life to take in the Beast King, and she couldn't even protect Lysana. She ended up in this weakened state. The smile she kept every day wasn't because she'd forgotten her sorrow, It was to ensure Elfman didn't blame himself, to help him move on from the shadow of guilt, and to avoid worrying her guildmates. As long as Elfman could move on and live a good life, that was enough. As long as her guildmates could think of good times when they saw her and not that tragic event, that was enough. As for herself, pain, sadness, loss of power. It was all her own doing, her punishment for arrogance. Love? Happiness? Even the hope of a new family? These were things she felt someone like her couldn't have. But Rhodes's feelings. Myra, 2 beers over here. Myra closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, she had her usual smile back on, coming right up. What should I do? What are you doing exactly? Rhodes sat in the carriage, looking at Natsu, who had kept them waiting for nearly 10 minutes. Happy complained too. So slow, Natsu. Wait, I'm almost ready, I can do this. Natsu took a deep breath, preparing himself to leap onto the carriage in one go. However, just before he could jump, he stopped abruptly. Maybe I should just walk. Hey, Happy, what are you doing? Let me go. Happy spread his wings, grabbed Natsu by the shoulders, and tossed him into the carriage. He then shouted, Mister, let's go. Hi-ah. The driver, already impatient from the heat and waiting so long, cracked the reins, setting off at once. Let go. Ugh. Natsu stopped struggling, slumping in the carriage with a greenish face, speaking weakly. Let me off. Rhodes carefully shifted away from Natsu's direction. Being this carsick is a bit much, isn't it? Happy said. Natsu has no resistance to any form of transportation. I heard Gray mention it once, but I didn't think it was as serious. Rhodes, unable to resist, poked Natsu's puffed-up cheek. When he heard a muffled groan, he quickly pulled his hand back. Suddenly, he felt uneasy again. Doesn't this mean he's completely incapable of fighting? You can do whatever you want to Natsu now. Like this, and like this. Happy pulled on Natsu's cheeks, styled his hair into a pointy tuft, then rolled around on Natsu's back, thoroughly messing with him. Happy. Natsu said weakly. Stop the carriage. I'll never forgive you. Mister, definitely don't stop. Chapter 66, Who was Lisanna? It looked like Natsu and Happy had a really good relationship. The way they messed around reminded Rhodes of his own siblings. He asked. Happy, when did you meet Natsu? When I hatched from an egg, it was X778. Happy replied. That's 5 years ago. Hatched from an egg. Rhodes caught on to something unusual. I was hatched by Natsu, with help from Elfman and Lisanna. Wait, cats are. Rhodes wanted to say that cats are mammals, but considering that this was a magical world and Happy was a talking, flying cat, it made sense. Who was Lisanna? Happy's ears drooped, and tears welled up in his eyes. Lisanna was Myra and Elfman's little sister. Last year, when she went out for work, Rhodes was stunned. Myra's sister? And she had already passed away? Did Myra have a sister? Myra wouldn't have said anything about this herself, and others in the guild, out of respect for Myra and Elfman, wouldn't mention it. So Rhodes had no way of knowing. Last year. That girl who smiles at everyone every day. She went through such a loss not too long ago. Behind that smile, there must be a strong heart, filled with thoughts of not wanting her guildmates to worry. I'm sorry, Happy. Rhodes selfishly wanted to ask more, but seeing Happy's expression, he couldn't bring himself to continue. Natsu says, no matter what happens, we have to move forward with strength. Lisanna is gone, so we have to carry on for her. Happy rubbed his eyes, shaking his head vigorously. I'm a fairy tale wizard too, I'm also strong. Happy, you're very strong. Rhodes patted Happy's head. He was still just a 5-year-old child. And Natsu could say something like that. It was indeed like something Natsu would say. Rhodes looked at Natsu. He didn't seem to have any reaction. Could he have already lost consciousness? Natsu? Ugh. He hadn't passed out, but there wasn't much response. Just some vague groaning. Rhodes suggested. How about we stop and rest for a while? No, if we don't make it to the village before dark, we'll have to camp outside. Besides, even if we stop, as soon as we start moving again, he'll just end up like this again. Happy objected, he was used to Natsu being like this. It was better to just get all the suffering over within one go rather than making him suffer repeatedly. Rhodes asked. When you carry him and fly, does he get like this too? That's so rude, Rhodes. I'm not a means of transportation. Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Rhodes clarified. I meant, why not just carry Natsu and fly over? Too far. My magic can't last that long. Happy explained. More importantly, it's exhausting. My arms get sore. So the main reason was being tired? What a good friend. Rhodes thought for a bit, then summoned one of the river crabs he used for scouting. Want to try this instead? The coachman and the horses were well experienced, not scared by the sudden appearance of the creature. Look, a crab. Happy looked excited. Natsu couldn't voice his opinion, so Happy didn't bother asking him, and simply grabbed him and flew over to the crab's back. The crab moved alongside the carriage, and in just a few seconds, Natsu regained his energy. He was jumping around on the crab's back, not scared of falling at all. Whoa, is this for riding? Awesome. You don't get carsick on a scuttle cab? Rhodes leaned out of the carriage window to look at Natsu and asked, then why did you rent a carriage instead of just renting a horse? Natsu and Happy both blinked, and then they both smacked their palms into their hands, saying in unison. So that's an option too. Rhodes was shocked. Is it because you didn't think of it? Actually, it wasn't just that. There were few people who offered horse rentals alone because managing the return of rented horses was a hassle. If they couldn't be returned in a timely manner, the owners didn't feel comfortable letting novices take care of the horses. Renting carriages came with fewer concerns since the coachman would accompany the carriage and handle any issues that arose. Seeing how excited Natsu and Happy were, Rhodes simply let them control the river crab using its antennae. With Natsu's enthusiastic shout of charge, the scuttle crab turned into an untamed beast, even using its speed boost ability under Natsu's urging. Ha ha ha. The scuttle crab ran wildly, and the sound of Natsu and Happy's laughter echoed across the fields. The coachman began to wonder, with this kind of magic, why did you even rent a carriage? That big crab could easily carry 3 people. But a few minutes later, Happy flew back by himself. Rhodes asked. Got tired of playing? Happy landed on the carriage seat, laying down exhausted, tongue out. Too hot, only Natsu can stand the sun. And that explained why they rented a carriage. Natsu rode the crab until he finally came back, moving alongside the carriage. He shouted excitedly, Rhodes, let's keep teaming up from now on. Rhodes asked. Just because of the scuttle crab? Yep. But for long distances, you'll still need to take a train or boat. Natsu laughed carefreely. Then we won't team up for long-distance missions. So pragmatic. Rhodes snapped his fingers, making the scuttle crab disappear, causing Natsu to suddenly faceplant onto the ground. He jumped up and shouted towards the carriage. What are you doing, Rhodes? Oh dear, magic power depleted. Happy surprisingly joined in, backing Rhodes up, depleted. Natsu should just run behind the carriage. Run behind the carriage. Natsu yelled angrily as he chased after them. You two jerks, stop right there. Rhodes and Happy looked at each other, both unable to help but laugh. After a while of fooling around, Natsu ended up riding on the scuttle crab again, though his expression stayed grumpy. That jerk Rhodes. He needed to find Rhodes' weakness and break him well. And Happy too, who joined in on Rhodes' trick. Next time, he'd steal his grilled fish. Meanwhile, Rhodes and Happy were getting along pretty well. Rhodes used the travel time to learn more about Happy's air magic. That was the magic Happy was born with, so Rhodes asked about how long Happy could fly, how much weight he could carry. Knowing your teammates' capabilities was crucial. Suddenly, Happy asked. Rhodes, why don't you bring out Worm to play? Worm doesn't like the hot weather, so... Rhodes paused, then realized, oh no, I forgot Worm in the guild kitchen. Rhodes had taken Worm to the kitchen in the morning to help Mr. Cook experiment with some new Poro dishes, but he'd forgotten to bring Worm when they left the guild. Happy snarked. That's so careless. It wasn't a big problem, really. Worm would find its way back on its own, and it was probably enjoying itself thoroughly, eating and having fun in the kitchen. Chapter 67, Would you eat your own summoned beast? The sun gradually moved westward, growing larger and shifting towards an orange-red hue, with its light becoming softer. On a seemingly flat road that appeared straight up close but winding from afar, a double-harness carriage moved forward at a leisurely pace. Nearby, a scuttle crab wandered around the carriage, sometimes moving quickly, sometimes slowly, sometimes farther, sometimes nearer. The roadside was lined with golden wheat fields. There wasn't much wind today, so there were no waves rolling through the wheat, but that didn't bother the one person and one cat peeking their heads out of the carriage window, taking in the rural scenery in silence. Hey! I see the mountain. We're almost there. The silence was broken by a young man with cherry pink hair riding the crab's back. Hey, coachman, hurry up. You're so loud, Natsu. Happy complained. Rhodes nodded in agreement. Yeah, no sense of mood at all. Natsu got annoyed seeing the two of them in such harmony and yelled, flailing his arms on the crab's back. You too. Since when did you get so close? Rhodes replied. When you were carsick. PFFT. Happy struggled to contain his laughter. Also when you face-planted earlier. That's it. Stop the carriage, I'm gonna make you pay. Natsu was so angry he almost spit fire. After a while of messing around, Rhodes suddenly turned serious. Natsu, about 800 or 900 meters ahead, there are wild boars. 5, no, 6 of them. Oh, you can see that far? Natsu stood on the scuttle crab's back, straining his eyes to see, but with the curving road, uneven terrain, and wheat fields, he couldn't spot anything. Why not try and see if you can smell the stink of the wild boars? Rhodes casually suggested. Natsu immediately put his head back, his nostrils flaring. Got it. Leave it to me. With a tug on the scuttle crab's antennae, Natsu shouted. Charge. Natsu. Rhodes wanted to say he had a plan for dealing with the boars, but Natsu dashed off too quickly. No chance to make him fall again. Happy said. Don't worry, wild boars are no problem for Natsu. Rhodes responded. I'm more worried about him burning down the fields. That does sound like something Natsu would do. Summon, Krug. Rhodes summoned 2 sets of Krugs, instructing them to follow Natsu, ready to dig a fire break to limit damage to the crops. Whoa there, the coachman pulled the horses to a stop. Sorry, there's a lot of wild animal activity up ahead, and the horses are too scared to go on. Rhodes stepped down to look around. There were indeed traces of animal activity in the wheat fields, likely leaving scents that frightened the horses. This is fine, the village isn't far. Rhodes said. Happy, get down. Aye, sir. Happy flew out, carrying Natsu's bag and Rhodes' suitcase. Seeing signs of wild animals in the vicinity, Rhodes summoned a group of raptors to escort the carriage a short distance for extra protection. Seeing fire up ahead, Rhodes and Happy quickly ran in Natsu's direction. Less than a kilometer was only a matter of a few minutes' run, hindered only by the luggage. And within those few minutes, Natsu had already resolved the fight. 6 wild boars of varying sizes lay quietly on the ground, and the fire in the wheat fields hadn't completely died down yet. Fortunately, the Krugs had dug a firebreak, preventing the flames from spreading further. Ahahaha. The culprit, Natsu, stood triumphantly with his hands on his hips, laughing without a care. See, you dumb wild boars, that's what you get for messing with me. Happy flew over with Natsu's luggage. Not so happy, Rhodes, you guys are late. I took care of all of them. Ahahaha. He was proud, as if he'd just won a hunting competition between the 3 of them. Happy said. Natsu is strong, but you almost burned down the entire wheat field. But I didn't. Natsu replied smugly. That's because Rhodes had the beetles dig the firebreak. Those are Krugs. Rhodes corrected, then said to Natsu. Please think it through before using fire in places like fields, forests, or villages, alright? I did think it through. Natsu punched the air, a small flame accompanying his fist. This much fire was just enough to deal with the wild boars. Rhodes got annoyed. I meant think about the consequences, like not burning down the field. That's what you're here for. Natsu grinned cheekily. No wonder Myra suggested I ask you to team up. Even if you trust me like this, even if you bring up Myra, I still... Wait, no. Rhodes almost got sucked into Natsu's twisted logic. Don't put your strange trust in me. I'm not here just to clean up your messes. Happy looked at the still burning wheat and asked. What do we do now? Escape before anyone notices. Get Natsu to eat the fire. Both spoke at the same time and were stunned by each other's responses. Before they spoke simultaneously again, would you eat your own summoned beast? You were planning on running away? They were even more shocked this time. Of course you run if you make a mess. Well, I guess we could try. Listening to each other's answers, both of them spoke in unison once more. You said that so confidently. Happy, seeing them go from speaking over each other to speaking in unison, wanted to quip. You two are so in sync. After some explanation, Rhodes came to understand. Oh, so Natsu can't eat his own fire, only other people's. Natsu then asked. So, can you really eat your own summoned beasts? Rhodes shrugged. No idea. I just figured if I was really starving, I could borrow a claw from the scuttle crab and nibble on it. It can regrow them, after all. Natsu and Happy both swallowed. How cruel. The scuttle crab returned to the summoner's rift. I was joking. By now, the fire within the firebreak had started to subside. Wheat straw burns quickly, and there wasn't much heat. The 6 spores lying there were merely charred on the outside. Rhodes ordered the Krugs to split, then had them drag out the 6 wild boars. He also had the summoned beasts dig up some dirt to cover and extinguish the remaining flames. Solid script, water. Rhodes waved his hand, creating a basin of water that splashed out, dampening the still hot earth. He repeated this a few times, cooling the area to prevent any potential flare-ups. After all this, Rhodes patted his right hand a few times. He had just said he wasn't here to clean up after Natsu, But he still ended up dealing with all of the problems Natsu had left behind. He sighed. Alright, let's drag these boars to the village. Huh? Why? We burned their fields, so we should give some explanation. Besides, we haven't officially reported to the client yet. Rhodes worried there might be trouble otherwise. So annoying. Natsu grumbled. In his experience, he'd always just gone and talked directly with the client in such situations. As long as the job was done, no one really cared much about these procedural details. And whose fault is that? If he hadn't sent the Krugs in, who knows how many acres of wheat would have been destroyed. Rhodes didn't even want to think about it. Don't get mad, don't get mad. He wasn't mad, this was all for rent money. But thinking about the fact that they still had a lot of fighting left to do before solving the whole beast problem, Rhodes felt a headache coming on. Maybe teaming Natsu up with Gray would have been the best idea? Chapter 68, Dendrobium Village. Dendrobium Village was built about 2 kilometers away from the Dendrobium Mountains, which made it technically a village at the foot of the mountain. Hence, it took its name from the mountain. The Dendrobium Mountains had 5 peaks and stretched over several dozen kilometers. Due to its relatively gentle slopes, it provided an ideal environment for the growth of various plants and offered suitable living conditions for many animals. The villagers lived by the saying, "Live off the mountain if you rely on it." In the past, when harvests were poor, the villagers of Dendrobium would often go into the mountains to gather and hunt, all while staying vigilant against wild animals that occasionally came down to forage. Because of this, the villagers cut down trees and built a tall wooden fence outside the village with sturdy logs. They even erected 2 sentry towers on either side of the gate, just inside the fence. 2 members of the hunting team were standing guard in the sentry towers. Earlier, they saw a strange, giant crab wandering near the village before it suddenly disappeared. Thinking they were just tired and seeing things, they began to complain about how long it was taking for their shift change. At that moment, they saw 6 strange beasts slowly approaching the gate. Bit. There's something weird coming this way. I see it, Mastiff. This time, it's definitely not our imagination. The young man named Bit grabbed his bow. Sound the bell, call everyone. Wait. There are people. Someone's riding on the back of those beasts. As the 6 figures drew closer, the 2 guards noticed that 2 of the strange beasts were carrying a black-haired boy, a cherry pink-haired boy, and what appeared to be a cat. Moreover, the beasts were walking backward because they were dragging something behind them. Upon closer inspection, it seemed to be wild boars. Rhodes noticed someone on the sentry tower aiming a bow at them and immediately signaled for the Krugs to stop. Natsu warily looked up at the archer and shouted. "We're wizards from Fairy Tale. We're here on a mission to deal with the wild beasts." Hearing that they were wizards, the 2 guards relaxed slightly, but Mastiff still held on to the rope for the bell as he asked. "What's with those beasts?" "They're summoned by my magic, to carry the boars we defeated on the way." Rhodes replied, waving his hand to make 3 of the Krugs disappear, leaving the boars on the ground. Bit finally put away his bow but added. "Come closer. We need to verify your guild emblems before we can open the gate." Natsu and Happy jumped off the Krug and approached the gate to show their emblems. One on his right arm, the other on his back. Rhodes remained on the Krug, cautious that the other side might suddenly do something, ready to pull Natsu and Happy underground for an escape. Luckily, nothing of the sort happened. The 2 guards confirmed that they all bore the Fairy Tale emblem and immediately turned the winch to raise the gate. The way they opened the gate made Rhodes uneasy. He felt like the rope could suddenly snap, and the gate would come crashing down on him. "My apologies for the earlier offense," Mastiff said, eyeing the Krugs that were dragging the boars into the gate. "May I ask about these boars?" "We ran into them destroying a wheat field on the way here, so we took care of them," Rhodes explained. "But in the process, we also destroyed a large part of the field. I wonder if we could use these to compensate for the damage." Mastiff quickly said. "I see, please don't blame yourself. If you hadn't stopped them, they would have destroyed even more." Natsu grinned at Rhodes. "See? I told you it'd be fine." Rhodes glanced at him. "Fine, my foot. If I wasn't here today, this guy would be regretting his words." Rhodes asked Natsu to take out the commission letter and asked Mastiff. "Could you tell us where Mr. Panther Leopold lives? We need to confirm mission details with the client." "That's a village chief's name. I'll take you there," Mastiff replied. "Bit, take care of things here." Bit nodded. "Make sure you call for help to deal with the boars." Mastiff waved and led Rhodes, Natsu, and Happy towards the chief's house. The chief's residence was in the center of the village, a 2-story house with a large courtyard. "Chief, the wizards from Fairy Tale are here." Seeing the courtyard gate open, Mastiff called out from the gate and led Rhodes and the others inside, waiting in the courtyard. Rhodes took the opportunity to observe the layout. The courtyard was quite spacious. On the left side near the gate was a cowshed, with a cow standing there, chewing something. On the right was a chicken coop. Because evening was approaching, there were no chickens outside, though occasional clucking sounds could be heard from inside the coop. Further in, there were two somewhat simple huts on either side, possibly used as a woodshed or storage. If things go south, I can call the Krugs to burrow out. The courtyard wall isn't high, so the raptors could carry us out, or the scuttle crabs could break through. If there's no time to summon anything, I could use the chicken coop as leverage to climb the wall, or even the cowshed. Rhodes planned several escape routes, feeling much more at ease. At that moment, an elderly man around 50 came out, leaning on a cane, accompanied by a young woman who looked to be under 30. The old man had deep-set eyes and a worried expression, probably due to concerns over the village's problems. The young woman had pale lips and a sorrowful look, as if she had just been crying. "Are you the wizards who accepted the commission?" The chief's voice was hoarse and weary. "There are 3 of us. I'm Happy, also a fairy tale wizard." Happy sprouted his wings, flew up, and turned around to show his emblem. Natsu and Rhodes then introduced themselves. "My apologies, it was my mistake," the old man said. "I'm Panther Leopold, the chief of this village, and this is my daughter-in-law, Snow." He gestured to invite them inside. "Please come in and sit." "Chief, there's one more thing." Mastiff explained about the boars. "Don't worry about that, once the wizards have resolved the situation, we'll check which field it was," Panther said, leaning on his cane. "And if it's not enough, I'll cover any difference myself." "No." Natsu immediately protested. "Whatever fairy tales wizards destroy, we take responsibility for." "Right, Happy, Rhodes? You're even proud of it." It was indeed the rule, so Rhodes nodded helplessly. "Then it's settled. Mastiff, you can go back to your duties." "Yes, Chief." After Mastiff left, Rhodes frowned, feeling like the chief seemed a bit rushed. Could there be a problem? They followed Panther and Snow into the living room, where Snow quietly served them tea before standing behind Panther. Holding his teacup up to his mouth to pretend to drink, Rhodes took a moment to examine the living room. Finally, he spotted what was wrong. On the wall of the living room hung a black and white photo of an adult man. Upon closer inspection, Rhodes noticed that both Panther and Snow had black bands on their sleeves. Was it a family member who had recently died because of the beasts? Chapter 69, The Possible Beast King. "That is my son, Cheetah, Snow's husband." Village Chief Panther Leopold spoke softly, and Snow looked heartbroken. "I'm sorry." Rhodes didn't know how to comfort someone who had lost a loved one. Just like when he learned about Lisanna, he didn't know if he should still smile in front of Myra. "No, this matter is directly related to the commission," Panther said solemnly. "After what happened to Cheetah, I must warn you that this mission could cost you your lives. If you have no confidence in completing it or need to reevaluate the mission rank and reward, I can accept that." This client seemed quite reasonable, so Rhodes responded. "Could you tell us in detail?" Bang. Natsu slapped the commission letter on the table. "Fairy tale members won't give up a mission so easily, just leave it to us." Rhodes closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then opened them again. This guy. Always so reckless. But his serious and confident expression was incredibly infectious. The village chief and Snow were clearly affected, feeling that maybe they really can do it. But Rhodes still wanted to understand more before making a plan. "Please explain it in detail." "The animal problem began a few years ago. For the past few years, our village has had favorable weather and abundant harvests. Correspondingly, the natural resources of Dendrobium Mountains have also been bountiful. And since we reduced our hunting and gathering activities, prey like hares, pheasants, deer, and mountain goats also increased in number. Then, starting the next year, predators on the mountain started to multiply. As the number of predators increased, their prey started to decrease." Rhodes nodded, understanding. It was like the positive and negative feedback loops in ecology. High school biology, he got it. Wild boars, who love to wreak havoc on farmland, became more common. As the amount of prey decreased, the predators started coming down the mountain for food. Their first targets were our livestock, but we tried various methods to fight back. Digging traps, building fences, and so on. But once hunting became difficult, these beasts began attacking humans when we went out for trade or to work in the fields. We organized a hunting team and ambushed the predators at the foot of the mountain. Cheetah was one of them. Rhodes didn't expect to hear first-hand stories of such a primal struggle between people and animals, and in such a primitive way. He glanced at the picture on the wall. It was so brutal. Happy couldn't help but ask. Did he die protecting the village while fighting the beasts? No, that's not true. The chief refuted Happy's words, striking his cane against the ground. He died because he overestimated himself. Father. Snow didn't want to hear him talk like that about her husband. No. Dad was a hero. A young girl with a bun hairstyle rushed into the room. Dad was a hero who protected the village. Dad isn't dead. Snow hurriedly held her. Cloud, your grandpa is meeting guests. You need to be polite. Dad is a hero. Grandpa is the worst. Cloud broke free from Snow's embrace and ran out crying. Cloud. Father. Snow was torn, wanting to chase her daughter, but afraid to be disrespectful. Rhodes quickly said. Please go after her, it's dangerous for a child to be running around so late. Snow looked at Panther's expression. The chief sighed. Even our guest says so. Snow quickly apologized and chased after her daughter. Sorry to make you witness that. A child admiring her father is natural. Natsu said, as if recalling his own father. He continued. So, what happened to the child's father? That arrogant fool. Panther sighed deeply, ultimately unable to berate his son any longer. He was the best hunter in the village, always hoping to find a way so that no one would have to worry about beast attacks again. So he kept hunting and kept investigating the mountain. 7 days ago, he said he had discovered what might be a beast king. A creature that was controlling all the animals. Beast king? Rhodes was familiar with the term. The Magic Beast Compendium had a description of it. It wasn't a specific type of animal but rather a powerful monster that could be born with a very small probability in areas where many beasts gathered. In this world, it wasn't just humans who could wield magic, sometimes animals would suddenly learn how to use magic. Without the intelligence to wield such power responsibly, these animals often became aggressive and furious. They might hunt or even rule over other animals in their territory. That was the origin of the Beast King. Because of that, Beast Kings didn't have a fixed form. Some looked like tigers, others like rhinos, and some even looked like demons. Many of the guild's monster hunting or demon slaying missions, ranging in difficulty, were usually dealing with animals like these, who had gained magic and become dangerous. The weaker Beast Kings were just stronger versions of predators like tigers, bears, or boars. But the most powerful Beast Kings could rival S-rank wizards in strength, making them terrifying magical beasts. Thus, missions to deal with them varied in difficulty accordingly. Thinking of this, Rhodes felt a bit uneasy. The village chief and the others were ordinary people, probably unaware of how powerful the Beast King could be, so they couldn't assess its rank. What if they encountered an S-rank one? Me. A wizard who's only studied magic for less than 2 months. Taking on an S-rank mission? At that point, I can only hope Natsu has some crazy power-up. The chief continued explaining. Cheetah believed that if the Beast King was defeated, the predators would lose their leader. They would then fight amongst themselves for territory, leading to a long period of peace. Even if we couldn't completely get rid of the beasts, at least it would be safe enough for us to harvest our crops, and we could decide what to do next depending on the situation. I tried to convince him to hire wizards to handle it, but he insisted he could do it himself. He said our village must be protected by us. We had a big argument, and in the end, he wouldn't listen. He went up the mountain alone, armed only with his weapons and bow. Then, he never returned. The few people in the room fell into a brief silence. Though the old village chief had complained about his son earlier, his grief was unmistakable. Happy tried to stay optimistic. Maybe he's just lost in the mountains. Natsu sometimes gets lost too. The chief shook his head slightly. 3 days ago, the search team brought back pieces of his clothes, along with his broken bow and weapon. Oh. Happy lowered his head. I'm sorry. It was his own choice. If I were 20 years younger, maybe. Bang. Natsu pounded the table with his fist, shaking the teacups. We're going up the mountain now. We're going to beat that Beast King. The chief hurriedly tried to stop him. No, it's already late. You've been on the road all day. Please rest for the night first. Dong. 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 The alarm bell rang out urgently, and the peaceful village suddenly came alive with noise. Chapter 70, Village Defense. There's a beast horde coming. Judging by the bell ringing pattern, there must be a lot of them. The village chief explained the meaning behind the bell sound calmly. However, our village walls are quite sturdy, so there's no need to worry. No, defeating the beasts and protecting the village is our mission. We can't just ignore them when they're attacking. Natsu said, standing up, his fists meeting each other. I'm all fired up, Happy. Happy understood, wings growing from his back as he grabbed Natsu and flew out. While airborne, Natsu yelled. We'll go on ahead. If you're late, you miss out, Rhodes. Rhodes couldn't be bothered to respond. I actually wouldn't mind missing out. It's exhausting, providing mounts and cleaning up after you all the time. Mr. Rhodes, the beast horde is dangerous. Your companion. Don't worry, Natsu is strong. Rhodes replied. I'll head out as well. Please, Wait. The village chief, worried that Rhodes would suddenly fly away, hurriedly asking. Is there anything we can do to help? Actually, there is one thing. Rhodes felt ashamed that he needed the chief's reminder. It was careless of him, almost letting Natsu's recklessness rub off on him. Please, go ahead. Could you organize the villagers to prepare water and sand? Things that can be used to put out fires? What? Natsu uses fire magic, which is powerful but can easily cause accidents. Please notify the villagers in advance. Ideally, every household should be prepared. I understand. The chief nodded. He didn't know much about magic, but he figured fire magic must be effective against beasts. Answer the call, Raptor. Rhodes summoned a raptor, mounted it, and flew toward the village entrance. Flying above the ground gave a completely different perspective, especially on such an unusual bird. Despite flying at a low altitude. Fortunately so. Rhodes knew that falling from this height wouldn't kill him. If it were any higher, he'd probably need a parachute. The bell had already startled the villagers. Some carried weapons or farming tools and ran toward the village entrance, while others ran toward the chief's house. Rhodes passed them from the air, attracting many curious glances. I heard the chief hired a wizard. Is that him? But their attention soon shifted to something else. At the village entrance, a red fireball fell from the sky, crashing into the center of the beast horde. Rhodes saw Natsu and silently criticized him for being reckless. Jumping down from such a high place like that. He jumped from the raptor onto the watchtower and ordered it to fly out and attack. Wizard, sir. The guard manning the watchtower was Bit, one of the two who had let Rhodes into the village earlier. Poor guy hadn't even had a chance to change shifts and was forced to work overtime. Thanks for the hard work. The one with the fire is my companion. You've seen him. So tell everyone not to shoot arrows at him. Yes, sir. Bit agreed, then worriedly added. But your companion charged into the middle of the beast horde alone. Will he be okay? With nightfall approaching, Rhodes could barely see that the beast horde numbered over 50, but he couldn't clearly identify all the species. Under Natsu's firelight, he could make out a few wolves and leopards surrounding him. The tiger that got hit by that meteor-like drop attack was down. Don't worry about him. If you want to help, bring more torches and prepare some water as well. Rhodes casually assigned some tasks to the villagers. However, even with these orders, the villagers couldn't relax. Many still carried bows, either climbing onto the watchtowers or propping up ladders to lie on top of the walls. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist. Fire Dragon's Claw. Natsu had a field day outside the wall, punching a wolf into the air, then kicking a leopard away. As if that wasn't enough, Natsu stretched out his arms, and fire extended from his wrists, forming wings of flame. He struck down with them, as if a fire dragon were swooping in. Fire Dragon's Wing Attack. 5 wolves were sent flying, their fur catching fire, wailing and rolling on the ground. So strong, so powerful. That's magic. That's the power of a wizard. With this kind of power, we have nothing to worry about. Natsu's impressive performance left the villagers in awe, giving them confidence. After dropping Natsu, Happy flew to the watchtower to find Rhodes. Rhodes, aren't you going to fight? Rhodes replied. I'm fighting. Liar, you're standing here. Rhodes shook his head and sighed. Who said only those standing in the light are heroes? I don't get it. Rhodes pointed to a dimmer area. Actually, one of his raptor and a group of merc wolves were already fighting. The raptor unleashed a feather rain attack, sending razor-sharp feathers into a brown bear, turning it into a dartboard. Unfortunately, against the rhino, the feathers could only pierce about halfway, not causing much damage. However, the raptor lived up to its name. After flapping its wings and charging, it could penetrate the rhino's belly. The smaller raptors weren't as impressive but were effective enough against wolves. As for the merc wolves, they were currently biting and tearing at a massive python, which was already covered in blood and struggling to stay alive. I'm a summoner. Being on the front lines isn't my job, got it? Happy realized that Rhodes' combat style wasn't as noticeable at night, and there was a risk that his summoned creatures might be mistaken for attacking beasts by the villagers. But if you don't want to fight yourself, why are you training with everyone else in combat? So that when the enemy thinks they can easily take me down after getting past the creatures, I can give them a surprise. That's sneaky. Rhodes pinched Happy's cheek. How can you call one of your own sneaky? It's called being smart and cautious. Rhodes let go of Happy. Besides, I also sent 2 scuttle crabs to patrol the village walls. I'm quite busy. After all, there was no rule that said beasts could only attack the main gate, other directions needed attention too. Happy watched quietly for a while before asking. Why not send those rock beetles too? You sure ask a lot of questions. Rhodes said. If I send out too many creatures, my magic won't last long, and I'm tired today. If he sent everything out, it'd only be good for a short burst. just like that sneak attack on the two wizards from Phantom. While keeping enough magic for himself, that series of attacks back then was probably the strongest combo Rhodes could pull off. For prolonged battles, it was best to stick with 2 or 3 groups. Thanks to the combined efforts of Natsu and the summoned creatures, the number of attacking beasts quickly dwindled. It was the first time the villagers had ever participated in such an easy defense battle. All they had to do was watch. Chapter 71, Strange Movements of the Beasts. Mr. Rhodes, the torches have been prepared as you asked, but... Bit looked at the scene of the ongoing battle, as if questioning whether they were still needed. Rhodes, however, said. Just in time. Throw all the torches outside the gate. Bit nodded. Understood. Are they for attacking the remaining beasts? No, throw them all toward Natsu. Huh? Just do it quickly. Rhodes urged. The battle was almost over. If they didn't throw them now, it would have all been a waste. Yes, sir. Bit directed the villagers to throw the torches outside, though none dared aim directly at Natsu. The villagers didn't understand what Rhodes meant, but Happy understood perfectly. He flew over the wall and yelled. Natsu. Food incoming. Natsu turned his head to see dozens of torches flying through the air. Oh, amazing. Natsu jumped up eagerly to grab the torches in midair, opening his mouth to inhale the flames as they got close. 2 torches that were out of reach were simply snatched by his hand. As Natsu landed, his cheeks were already puffed up, and after a few bites and a swallow, the flames were gone. Rhodes couldn't understand why flames needed to be chewed. Was he worried there were fire bones in them? He ate them. He really ate the fire. So, fire wizards can eat fire? The villagers all looked at Rhodes. If fire wizards ate fire, then what about this beast-controlling wizard? More strange knowledge added itself to their understanding. No wonder they dared to take on this kind of mission with only 2 people. Natsu then put the torches in his hand into his mouth like lollipops, chomping down on them before tossing the sticks away. Thanks for the meal. He wiped his mouth, his entire body suddenly enveloped in flames. I feel the power surging through me after eating. Natsu took a deep breath, spewing out a large amount of flame like a dragon's breath. Fire dragons. Roar. The raging flames engulfed all the remaining beasts, rendering them incapable of further battle. It almost scorched 2 of the small raptors as well. Rhodes slapped the railing of the watchtower in anger, yelling. Natsu. Watch out for our allies. Ha. Natsu scratched his pink hair, apologizing carelessly. Sorry, I couldn't see well in the dark. It got a bit overboard, but they're unharmed, aren't they? Rhodes didn't believe him. This guy definitely knew beforehand that the summoned creatures wouldn't die, which was why he was so reckless. Otherwise, Happy, who had been by his side for years, would have already been roasted. Happy shivered slightly. Rhodes, I feel like you're thinking something scary. Rhodes denied it. Nothing of the sort. That was such a quick victory. The wizards are amazing. The villagers were surprised by the wizard's prowess, with some even unconsciously adding honorifics. Bit seemed a bit dumbfounded. So those torches were for that purpose. Mr. Rhodes, what do we do now? Open the gates and put out the fire. Rhodes said. Didn't I tell you to prepare supplies earlier? Otherwise, the flames will reach the walls soon. Oh, yes, of course. Bit quickly shouted. Open the gates, put out the fire, protect the walls. Oh. Fortunately, the main battle took place on the main road, and the flames didn't spread far, nor were they particularly large, otherwise, it would have been a busy night. The villagers used the winch to raise the gate, carrying buckets of water and carts of sand outside to extinguish the flames. It was much safer to do this than to directly face a beast horde when the fire was small. Rhodes used the scuttle crab's sight to survey the area around the village and noticed a few other beasts passing by in a different direction. However, they didn't seem to be heading for the village. Just passing through. The village chief didn't stay home waiting obediently. Instead, he had came to the village entrance with his cane. Everyone, well done. Did anyone get hurt? Chief. Thanks to the wizards, no one got hurt at all. Natsu walked in through the gate, and Rhodes, with Happy in tow, jumped down from the watchtower. The village chief expressed gratitude on behalf of the villagers. It's our mission, after all. Rhodes said. There's something I'd like to confirm with you. Is there any other village nearby? The chief shook his head. No, the nearest village is dozens of kilometers away. Then that's strange. Where were those beasts headed? Were they just randomly wandering? Rhodes had no choice but to retract the other creatures and send a scuttle crab to track them. You 3 have worked hard, coming all this way and joining the battle right away, said the village chief. There shouldn't be any more trouble tonight, so please, come rest at my place. Thank you, we'll accept your offer. Rhodes was not one to refuse, and besides, he was truly starving. Natsu had a somewhat reckless suggestion. Rhodes, why don't we just take out all the beasts in the mountain in one go? Don't be ridiculous. The mountain stretches dozens of kilometers, and we wouldn't cover it all even if we stayed up all night. Rhodes cautioned, suddenly suspicious. You're not thinking of setting the mountain on fire, are you? Of course not. If I wanted to burn the mountain, there wouldn't be a need for a mission request. Natsu denied it flatly. I just want to solve this quickly. Rhodes nodded. Oh, well, then why don't you go ahead and do it alone? Happy and I will have a delicious dinner, take a nice bath, and sleep comfortably. Tomorrow, we'll come up the mountain and bring you a cold breakfast. Happy agreed. You too. Natsu muttered under his breath, but obediently followed them. Rhodes seemed to have found a new way to communicate with Natsu. The dinner at the village chief's house was lavish. They even killed 3 chickens to entertain them. In fact, the meat from those defeated beasts earlier would have sufficed. There was certainly enough. But the chief might have thought it impolite, so he used his own supplies to treat his guests. While eating, Rhodes kept an eye on those few wandering beasts, realizing that they seemed to be wandering aimlessly. They even split up along the way. Weird. That night, Rhodes, Natsu, and Happy stayed in the same room on the 2nd floor. It wasn't that the chief's house lacked rooms, Rhodes just thought it'd be safer to stay together. He was a light sleeper in unfamiliar places, and it would also help keep Natsu from sneaking out to cause trouble in the middle of the night. Before bed, Rhodes held a strategy meeting with Natsu and Happy. Tomorrow, I'll first send the Merc Wolves and Scuttle Crabs up the mountain to scout and search for the Beast King. No one is allowed to act on their own until then. Ugh, it's such a hassle. Can't we just head up the mountain to look? No, the villagers couldn't assess the Beast King's power and couldn't provide information, so we need to figure it out ourselves. Rhodes said seriously. If it's beyond what we can handle, I'll abandon the mission and request help from the guild. Rhodes, how can we just? I agree with Rhodes. Happy, even you? Because Rhodes makes sense. Happy patted the small green bag on his back, which had a fish Rhodes secretly gave him. We're a team of 3, so it's 2 against 1. You listen to me. Rhodes said. Now let's all get some good sleep and regain our energy. Natsu grudgingly lay down. Actually, Happy knew a more effective way to persuade Natsu, but he didn't want to mention it. Deciding things like this through playful squabbling was just fine. Chapter 72, The Beast King's Trail. Rhodes, used to city life, rarely heard a rooster crowing in the morning. He lifted the light blanket, got up, and pulled back the curtains for a look. It was still early. There seemed to be a thin layer of mist outside, gradually fading as the sun peeked out. Behind him came light snoring. Natsu and Happy were sleeping soundly, their carefree nature both concerning and enviable. Quietly, Rhodes tiptoed past them to the door, careful not to wake them. After a moment of thought, he went back, squatted down, took a deep breath, and shouted between the 2 heads, "Wake up!" Watching Natsu and Happy jump up, each rubbing their ears, Rhodes laughed heartily, just as carefree as Natsu. Damn you, Rhodes. Natsu and Happy lunged at him, and the 3 of them wrestled into a pile. When the 3 of them came downstairs for breakfast, each sported a black eye. The village chief thought they had been injured the night before, but the dim light prevented him from noticing. After a hearty breakfast, Rhodes summoned Worm. Today, we're heading to investigate the mountain. I'll leave this guy here at your house. If there's an emergency, just say go back to it, and I'll get the signal and return as soon as I can. Given the lack of communication tools, Rhodes had to resort to this method. Poro had far greater intelligence compared to other summoned creatures, consumed very little mana, and wasn't suited for combat, making it perfect for such a task. This was something he decided last night after sensing Worm return to the Howling Abyss. Worm looked around, not in the familiar guild or home environment, and seemed a bit displeased. However, as long as Rhodes gave it clear instructions, it would follow them. Except when asked to help in brawls with friends. Snow, under the chief's guidance, picked Worm up. I'll take good care of it. The 3 of them turned to leave, and they happened to see the little girl Cloud from yesterday, poking her head out from the gate, looking timidly at them. Noticing she'd been seen, Cloud quickly hid again. Rhodes didn't mind and continued out, reminding Natsu to stay calm in case anything happened. Just as they were about to step out of the yard, the little girl gathered her courage and ran up to them. Excuse me. The 3 turned to look at her. Cloud's courage seemed to dissipate in an instant, and she weakly asked. Can you defeat the monster on the mountain? Rhodes gently asked. Do you know about the monster on the mountain? Cloud nodded, then shook her head. Daddy said there's a leopard monster on the mountain. Its upper body is leopard, and its lower body is like a human. It's twice as tall as a person, its teeth are as long as chopsticks, Its mouth is as big as a basin, its tail is thicker than my arm, and it has very long mane." As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes, and she began to sob. "Daddy said that's what the monster on the mountain looks like. His wish was to defeat it and protect everyone. He told me to be good and stay at home, and that he would come back soon, but... Natsu put his hand on her head, and her sobbing stopped abruptly. "Then keep being good and wait at home. I'll fulfill your daddy's wish for him." Tears streamed down Cloud's face. She stared blankly at Natsu's back as he walked away, her vision growing blurrier. To get a better look at the kind older brother, Cloud tried hard to wipe her tears away with her arm. Rhodes sighed silently, secretly formulating a plan to knock out Natsu and drag him underground in case of an emergency. He knew that Natsu's foster father had also disappeared one day, never to return. It would be hard for Natsu to remain indifferent in such a situation. And the little girl's tears were truly moving. Rhodes felt for the child, but he needed to stay rational. "Happy, keep an eye on Natsu. Don't let him do anything stupid." Happy wasn't too confident. Rhodes summoned 2 scuttle crabs and a group of merc wolves, urging them to move ahead faster. The beasts he had trapped last night really were just hiding in a forest, cautiously exploring new territory and searching for a new place to live, which was perplexing. For now, Rhodes set aside his doubts and focused on analyzing the new information. This was the information Cloud provided from her father's description of the Beast King. Considering that during the transfer of information, some might have been lost or exaggerated, the details couldn't be fully trusted. But the most useful piece of information now was that the opponent might be some sort of leopard-like creature. A leopard, based on its racial characteristics, was likely to be a speed and agility-based opponent. To handle this kind of enemy, Rhodes thought of jet Krugs could come in handy, and the raptor's wide-area attacks might also be effective. The antidote for the Grump wasn't ready yet. But if it's for dealing with the enemy, it wouldn't hurt to use it, as long as it didn't affect allies. Rhodes and Happy caught up with Natsu and stopped him at the foot of the mountain. Rhodes had already inquired about the general terrain of the mountain from Bit and Mastiff, and recklessly charging up the mountain could lead to a dangerous snake bite. That wouldn't be fun. The more you want to help Cloud, the more you need to stay calm. If anything happens to you too, that kid might never trust anyone again. This sort of reasoning worked, barely. Natsu sat down cross-legged, arms folded. "How long do we have to wait?" "Until I find it," Rhodes said, linking his sight to the scuttle crabs. "The first one has already climbed the first peak. So far, nothing unusual. The merc wolves are trying to pick up the scent of a predator." To prevent Natsu and Happy from getting anxious, Rhodes verbally narrated what the scuttle crabs were seeing in real time. After half an hour of searching, a grizzly bear approached from the mountain, and upon noticing the 2 humans and 1 cat, it seemed wary. But when it compared their sizes, it showed no fear and lunged. Natsu stood up, pounding his fist into his palm, just in time for a fight. Battle marks. Rhodes finally found something. The ground held the remains of a wild boar, clearly gnawed on by some animal. Exposed ribs and a broken spine. Whether caused pre or post-mortem was unclear. The merc wolves sniffed the scent and bolted in a direction, with the scuttle crabs following. In Rhodes's view, trees, rocks, and vegetation flashed by quickly until they stopped at another spot with battle marks. This time it was a wolf carcass, its body twisted in an exaggerated bend, likely from a broken spine. The merc wolves showed no empathy, sniffing ahead before charging towards the next location. Rhodes then saw the carcasses of tigers, bears, leopards, and other animals. Each one seemed to have been bludgeoned to death, the scene extremely brutal, and strange. If the beasts of the mountain were dying in territorial disputes, the wounds should mostly be from biting. Not many animals used blunt force to kill, right? Chapter 73, Fang against Fang. After a flurry of Fire Dragon's consecutive punches, Natsu finally took down the grizzly bear. His anger subsided considerably, and he sat back down quietly to listen to Rhodes' live commentary. "I found it." After observing one battlefield after another, Rhodes finally spotted a monster. It bore similarities to Cloud's description, but it wasn't quite as exaggerated. Indeed, it was a leopard man, with a figure reminiscent of Rob Lucci from the next-door studio. However, this Beast King had much more muscular limbs and a more menacing face. The leopard man was gripping a wolf by its throat with one hand, then with a swing of its arm, it slammed the wolf to the ground, following up with a heavy punch. The nearby ground seemed to shudder slightly, and the wolf's spine cracked audibly, its whimper fading as it died. From the look of its combat style, it was clear that the earlier atrocities were also its doing. The leopard man roared toward the sky, its bloodshot eyes glaring at the surrounding wolf pack. The wolves that had surrounded it began retreating, turning and running away soon after. Their direction of escape, unfortunately, led straight toward Dendrobium village. After hearing Rhodes' narration, Happy asked, "Why is the Beast King killing those other beasts? Establishing dominance? The one it just killed was probably the pack leader, and now the entire wolf pack is terrified of it." Rhodes speculated, then wondered aloud. "Is it driving them down the mountain this way? I thought it could just roar." Natsu cracked his knuckles. "Doesn't matter. We just need to beat it, right?" Rhodes held him back. "Wait a second, the merc wolves have been spotted." With the whole wolf pack retreating, the 3 merc wolves standing still appeared particularly conspicuous. But this was part of Rhodes' plan. Sending the merc wolves to search and also to test the opponent's level. The leopard man let out a roar and charged at the merc wolves. The merc wolves split apart in perfect coordination. The 2-headed wolf faced it head-on while the regular wolves flanked from either side. Meanwhile, the 2 scuttle crabs scurried away to different positions, each acting as a high-definition camera. Through a dual-angle perspective, Rhodes carefully monitored the leopard man's movements, calmly assessing its charge speed. It didn't seem particularly fast. The leopard man charged forward, using its height advantage to swing a powerful punch down at the 2-headed wolf's spine, seemingly attempting to end the fight in one blow. But the 2-headed wolf reacted quickly, nimbly dodging to the side, and immediately lunged back to bite at the leopard man's wrist. The regular wolves took this opportunity and pounced on the leopard man's other arm. Rhodes wondered if adding 2 krugs to grab its legs would improve the outcome. But things weren't that simple. Even though the merc wolves were as big as tigers, the leopard man dragged 1 large merc wolf and 2 smaller ones, and still managed to move around. Moreover, it was able to swing its arm, smashing the wolves against tree trunks. Bang! Bang! 2 trees with trunks about 30 centimeters in diameter snapped, and the merc wolves were forced to release their grip. The 2-headed wolf quickly rolled away on the ground, maintaining distance while growling low. The regular wolves struggled to get up shakily, clearly not able to last much longer. The leopard man stared at the 2-headed wolf and licked its arm. Several rows of bloody puncture wounds now adorned its arms, with the spots bitten by the 2-headed wolf particularly torn. Despite suffering injuries, its simple and brutal attacks had clearly showcased its immense strength. After licking its wounds, the leopard man seemed even more ferocious and prepared for another assault. The 2-headed wolf darted side to side, zigzagging towards the leopard man before suddenly leaping, aiming directly for the throat. The leopard man swung its right arm, striking between the 2 heads and knocking the 2-headed wolf to the ground. Before it could follow up, the regular wolves fearlessly lunged forward, only to be taken down with a single punch each. The 2-headed wolf used this opportunity to retreat, pawing at the ground to dig a small pit. Once it had a good start, it sprinted, twisting its body into a cyclone as it spun at the enemy. Fang attack. Upon learning that the 2-headed wolf had this skill, Rhodes immediately named it so. The move had considerable power. He had never dared try it in the guild. Unfortunately, the leopard man was even stronger. It spread its arms and grabbed each of the wolf's jaws. The wolf's teeth sank into the back of the leopard man's hand, but it couldn't clamp down any further. The leopard man slid backward a bit under the impact of the charge, but ultimately avoided significant harm. What followed was a brutal scene. The 2-headed wolf was sent back to the summoner's rift for rest. The leopard man seemed puzzled as to why these wolves disappeared after being defeated. It let out a few roars before moving on to find new targets. Though the merc wolves were defeated, Rhodes wasn't discouraged. Based on his observation, this leopard man wasn't yet at an S-level threat. Even without Natsu, he might be able to handle it himself if he unleashed his full power. Wait, that's overconfidence. They still couldn't rule out the possibility of a second-phase transformation when pushed to its limits, but at least they could try, as long as they had a solid retreat plan. Rhodes explained his analysis to Natsu and Happy. So that's about it. We'll head out now. Do you two need to prepare? Ready ages ago. Natsu jumped up, leading the way up the mountain. Without the needing direction from Rhodes, Natsu followed the scent of the scuttle crabs. On their way up the mountain, Rhodes continued to explain his ambush and retreat plan. Ambush for Natsu, retreat for Happy, each tailored to their strengths. As expected, they encountered the wolf pack that had just been driven away by the leopard man. Natsu and the summoned creatures dealt with them swiftly, while Rhodes and Happy cheered them on and reminded Natsu not to go all out. You two are so annoying. Natsu complained once the fight was over. If you've got time to talk, help with the fighting. Happy raised one paw. I've got more important tasks. Rhodes also raised one hand, mimicking Happy's tone. I just took down more wolves than you. You too. Natsu was frustrated but had no place to vent his anger, so he marched ahead in silence, hoping to find the Beast King quickly. The three bickered as they climbed over a hill. Occasionally, ferocious beasts lunged at them, which Natsu and Rhodes dispatched one by one. After over an hour, They finally reached the spot where the three wolves had battled the leopard man. The leopard man was no longer there, but a roar echoed from a pine forest not far ahead. Natsu glanced at Rhodes, who nodded, signaling that was the place. Two scuttle crabs were camouflaged nearby, like large green stones, silently providing Rhodes with a clear view. Rhodes summoned two groups of Krugs and one group of raptors to coordinate with Natsu in battle. He himself was lifted by Happy, who flew up to the tallest tree in the forest. Honestly, being carried by Happy wasn't very reassuring. Chapter 74, Ho. Mrajane? S-Class? Facing the so-called Beast King described by the village chief, the magical energy emanating from it was completely unrestrained. Natsu, however, didn't feel any pressure and instead rubbed his fists, eager for action. I told you, Rhodes, you were overthinking it. How could this guy be S-Class? He is nowhere near his level. Seeing the Beast King with his own eyes, Rhodes nodded as he hugged Happy on the tree. Indeed, it's hard to disagree with that. Natsu continued comparing. And nowhere near Mrajane either. That, comparing it to Mrajane is a bit too much, isn't it? Happy added. Natsu means the old Mrajane. Old. Mrajane used to be strong? Aye. Mrajane used to be an S-Class mage and fought Riza all the time. Rhodes pictured Mrajane's gentle image in his head. Her? Fighting Riza? It was a bit hard for him to imagine. Aye, back then, the two were like Natsu and Grain now. Rhodes felt his brain glitch. Yesterday, after mentioning Lisanna, he had wanted to ask about Mrajane's past. But considering Happy's emotions, he couldn't bring it up. Today. Roar Fire Dragon's iron fist. Alright, let's ask after the fight. Natsu's fist collided with a leopard man's, producing a heavy thud. The two had a significant size difference, with Natsu's flaming fist barely matching the leopard man's in size. Despite that, in this fist clash, Natsu didn't fall behind. Both stood firm for a moment, then took a step back. The leopard man's fist was slightly charred, and Natsu left a faint trail with his feet. You're pretty tough, aren't you? Natsu flexed his fists and charged in again. The leopard man seemed hesitant, but upon seeing the attack coming, naturally went to meet it. The two exchanged blows. Sometimes clashing, sometimes blocking. The leopard man was powerful, each move carried tremendous force, and a regular person would probably have their bones shattered from a single hit. Meanwhile, each of Natsu's attacks came with flames, providing his blows with immense destructive and explosive power. Even successful blocks left burns. After exchanging over a dozen blows, Natsu attempted to exploit the size difference with more nimble attacks. However, the leopard man's leopard traits weren't just for show. It was large yet quite agile. Fire Dragon's Flame Elbow. With a flaming elbow enhanced by jetting flames, Natsu forced the leopard man back 2 steps, then swiftly backflipped twice to widen the gap. This was the pre-agreed moment to attack. From the surrounding pine trees, 1 large and 5 smaller raptors suddenly swooped out. The large one flapped its wings powerfully, shooting out dozens of feather-like knives. The smaller ones each shot out a feather just for good measure. The leopard man raised both arms to protect its vital areas, and dozens of feathers pierced its arms, shoulders, and legs. Roar. The leopard man roared, broke a large tree beside it, and swung it, knocking the diving raptors away. Krugs burst out from underground. One rammed into the leopard man's back, knocking it off balance, while the other grabbed its waist with its pincers from the front. The leopard man swung the tree it held in a half circle behind it, knocking down the Krug behind. Then it roared again, its arms seemingly bulging thicker, smashing and elbowing the Krug clamped to it. At this point, Natsu, who was supposed to attack, remained inactive. The leopard man had already battered the Krug until it split into 2 smaller Krugs. Krugs, bind it. Rhodes didn't know what was going through Natsu's mind, but he had backup plans. He could send in another group of raptors for an opportunity. If all else failed, he could take the risk and send in the Gromp. Rhodes held the pendant while on the tree branch. Answer my call. Wait, Rhodes. Natsu suddenly called out. Rhodes frowned, urgently asking. What's wrong? At a time like this, you're not asking for a one-on-one, are you? But just in that brief exchange, the leopard man knocked away an obstructing Krug, powerfully leapt onto a pine tree, and jumped away, escaping rapidly. Well, no need to rush now. Happy flew down with Rhodes. What are you doing all of a sudden, Natsu? We were about to win. Natsu spoke sulkily. That guy isn't the Beast King at all. Rhodes said. But it matches all the characteristics of a Beast King. Of course, because he fully took over the Beast King. Natsu emphasized. It's he, not it. Take over. No way? Rhodes thought of a possibility, but it seemed far-fetched. Happy asked. What's going on? That guy, even though he reeks of various beasts, There's also a smell I detected back at the village chief's house. Natsu believed that it was the scent of Cheetah, who had been missing for 8 days. Basing things solely on scent wouldn't hold up, so Rhodes said. But Cheetah went up the mountain to fight the Beast King. It's not strange if the Beast King picked up his scent. Also, how do you know it's takeover magic? Natsu answered seriously. When he fought, and when he used his arms to smash the beetles, the way he used magic. It was definitely takeover magic. I wouldn't mistake it. Why? Rhodes wanted to ask how Natsu knew takeover magic so well. And just now, his sudden burst of analysis almost made Rhodes wonder if Natsu had been swapped with someone else. I believe Natsu. Happy's tone also grew serious, and he explained for Natsu, because Mura Jane, Elfman, and Lisana all use takeover magic. So, Natsu wouldn't get it wrong. Rhodes stayed silent. He sat down cross-legged on the ground. There had been too much shocking information these last couple of days, and he needed time to sort it out. First, Mura Jane had a sister named Lisana, who unfortunately passed away last year. Then Mura Jane used to be an S-class mage, on par with Ursa. And the Strauss siblings, all 3 of them, use takeover magic. Lastly, from what Happy implied, Lisana and Natsu were close, so Natsu was familiar with takeover magic. Based on this familiarity, Natsu concluded that the leopard man Beast King they just fought was actually Cheetah, who had gone missing for 8 days, using takeover magic to seize the Beast King's body. From what Rhodes knew, takeover magic allowed one to seize their target's body for their own use. However, if the caster's power was insufficient but they still forced a takeover, they could be influenced by the other's will, losing control and acting irrationally. That lined up with the strange and aggressive behavior of that Beast King. But one point still didn't make sense. Can someone maintain takeover magic for a full 8 days? Rhodes said. If it truly was takeover magic, then he should have collapsed from exhaustion or reverted to normal from lack of magic on the first day. Chapter 75, Why so harsh? How should I know? In the world of magic, there are many strange and inexplicable things. Not everything can be explained. Natsu didn't care how the other party did it, he just wanted to solve the problem. In any case, all of Rhodes' battle plans are useless now. Yeah. Rhodes had formulated plans A, B, and C, all aimed at killing the Beast King. This was the difference between a monster extermination mission and a bandit clearing mission. One required you to kill, while the other must not be killed easily. Now, the monster they needed to exterminate might be an ordinary person transformed by magic, meaning they had to capture it alive and find a way to undo the magic. Natsu had stopped Rhodes just because of that. It wouldn't be acceptable if they took on a monster extermination mission only to end up killing the client's son. Undoing the takeover magic. In the heat of the moment, Rhodes thought of 3 possible methods. The first was to wait for the other party's magic power to run out, causing them to naturally revert. However, in the current situation, that might not be feasible. The second was to find something called a magic sealing stone, which could stop a mage from using their magic. Rhodes had never seen the actual thing, but from the book's description, it seemed similar to the sea prism stone from the next door studio, though not as hard. Before the advent of mage guilds, ordinary people used it to fight against and persecute mages. It was now mainly used in the council's prisons. This item couldn't be obtained quickly, and using 3 mages with magic sealing stones in battle was far-fetched. The third method was the simplest and most brutal: beat the person until they completely lost their ability to fight, even losing consciousness, thereby making the magic automatically dispel. This was the most suitable method for the current situation, though during the fight they would have to be careful. Couldn't kill, couldn't cripple. But that wasn't a huge issue, as long as they didn't die on the spot. Taking them to poorly Uzuka could ensure their survival no matter how serious the injuries. Alright, let's do that. Solving the problem with a fight was the solution that best suited Natsu. He jumped up, swinging his arms as if about to leave, but was only jogging in place. Rhodes had grabbed the back of his shirt collar. Natsu turned his head back. What now? Rest for a bit before we go. Rhodes said. You've barely recovered your magic power, and now you're rushing around. Don't you feel insecure? Natsu looked puzzled. Why would I feel insecure? You're so reckless it's hard for me to explain. Rhodes decided to change his approach. He pointed at the prey provided by the Beast King in the forest. Roasted meat, wanna eat? Natsu thought for a moment. Yeah. Happy raised his paw. I want fish. Rhodes, the master of terrain reconnaissance, pointed in a direction. There's a mountain stream over there. Try your luck, and we can also handle the prey there. The 3 of them found a clearing by the water, picked up some stones to form a circle, and started a fire for roasting meat. Happy made a makeshift fishing rod to fish on his own. While the meat was still cooking, Rhodes couldn't help but ask the question that had been on his mind all along. What was Mura Jane like before? Did she learn takeover magic? Natsu was poking the firewood in the fire with a stick. When the stick caught fire, he pulled it out and put it in his mouth like a lollipop. Hearing Rhodes' question, Natsu looked puzzled. Huh? Why suddenly ask that? Just curious. She clearly said she's not good at fighting. I heard that Mara Jane used to live in a very remote village, and to help defeat a demon in the village church, she accidentally ended up taking over the demon. Then, the villagers treated her like a demon and ostracized her, so she left the village with Elfman and Lysana and joined the guild. When Natsu mentioned Lysana, he was calmer compared to Happy, though he accidentally bit off a piece of the stick. After joining the guild, Elfman and Lysana started learning takeover magic. And then Mara Jane, for some reason, kept competing with Riza and became stronger and stronger. Back then, the two of them. Natsu gave a mischievous smile. The two of them were terrifying. Gray got beaten up badly no matter who he offended. Ahaha. Rhodes glanced at Natsu. If Gray got beaten up, Natsu certainly didn't escape either. And this means Mara Jane was also one of those geniuses who naturally grasped the magic that suited her best. S-class mage? How did that happen? 2 years ago, Mara Jane passed the S-class exam. Riza passed 3 years ago. Natsu remembered this kind of thing clearly, though he sounded rather disgruntled. The old man has always refused to let me take the exam. Damn, I want to be S-class too. Rhodes figured the guildmaster must have his reasons. Either believing Natsu wasn't strong enough or thinking Natsu lacked the stability required. That was none of his business. The key was that Mara Jane really was an S-class mage once. If so, a lot of things that had seemed strange to Rhodes before now made sense, like why Mara Jane could freely go to the second floor that he and Lockie couldn't access, why she was qualified to act as the guildmaster's assistant and, often, essentially did the guildmaster's job, why she could accurately determine the difficulty of various missions and assess whether those taking them could complete them, why every time she watched Rhodes and his teammates fight, she could precisely point out the strengths and weaknesses of both sides, why, when Happy saw her showing a hint of anger before departure, he was immediately terrified. It all made sense. Because she used to be so strong. And her temper back then was likely not that great either. As for why Mara Jane had become weaker, Rhodes guessed it was probably related to Lysana, but he didn't ask further. Asking Natsu about it felt overly intrusive. He planned to quietly ask Riza or Kana when they got back. Unexpectedly, Natsu brought it up himself. Last year, Mara Jane took Elfman and Lysana on an S-class mission to exterminate a Beast King. Yeah, a Beast King. Natsu stared at the fire in front of him intently, as if he could see that moment. To take on an S-class mission, you must have an S-class mage leading, and Mara Jane and her siblings were definitely qualified. But that Beast King's strength far exceeded their expectations, and all three of them exhausted their strength in the battle. Elfman, to protect Mara Jane and Lysana, forced himself to take over the Beast King. But he lost control, and then Lysana. Rhodes' eyes widened. He had thought Lysana died in an accident during the mission but never expected that Elfman. As an older sister, watching helplessly as her out-of-control brother killed their younger sister, how desperate must Mara Jane have been? And after waking up, how much pain must Elfman have felt? Clearly, he had been the hero who defeated the demon to protect his village, yet the villagers drove them out. They had barely settled in at the guild, only to encounter such a cruel ordeal. Why must fate be so harsh to this family? Natsu punched the ground. So, Rhodes. We must complete this mission. I absolutely won't let someone else who also took over the Beast King hurt their family too. Absolutely not. Chapter 76, Beat Him. Rhodes understood Natsu's determination. A kind person, after experiencing such an event, surely wouldn't want anyone else to suffer the same misfortune. So, they would give it their all to fight and bring that poor guy back to normal. By the time Happy returned with 2 fish, Natsu and Rhodes were already sharing the roasted meat. Rhodes took a couple of bites, but because he had too much on his mind, the food felt tasteless. He mechanically chewed and swallowed for the sake of quickly recovering his strength and magic. After filling his stomach, he meditated for a while. By the time Happy's fish was ready, Rhodes' magic was mostly restored. They put out the fire and set off again. After escaping, the leopard man kept changing his location, but since Natsu had memorized his scent, finding him wasn't difficult. With Natsu responsible for tracking, Rhodes could focus on using his scuttle crabs to scout the terrain. He aimed to find a few areas with low fire risk as backup battlegrounds. Found him. The 3 of them had just crossed the second peak of the Orchid Mountain range when they finally spotted the leopard man again. That guy really knows how to run. Rhodes held his pendant, summoning a group of merc wolves and a group of raptors. The group of merc wolves and raptors lost in the previous battle wouldn't recover until the next day. Grugs were being kept in reserve, and the 2 grumps couldn't be used recklessly without the antidote. Natsu, there's a good clearing 300 meters to the left of the maple grove ahead and another 200 meters forward. Got it? You want me to lead him there for the fight, right? Natsu could be quite sensible. Most of the time, the destruction he caused wasn't intentional. Rhodes recalled a scuttle crab, planning for it to carry Natsu forward in a charge while he and Happy found a suitable tall tree to watch the fight. They needed a spot that was both safe and convenient for Rhodes to command his beasts in real time. Charge! Natsu jumped onto the back of the scuttle crab, gripping its antennae excitedly to urge it on. The leopard man noticed Natsu, and his first reaction was to leave the area. But just as he turned right to escape, hundreds of feathers rained down from above. The leopard man took a few steps back to avoid the feathers, noticing 3 wolves now blocking his way. He wasn't afraid of the wolves but didn't want to waste time, so he moved his foot and changed direction to flee to the left. Faster, faster! Urged by Natsu, the scuttle crab used its skill, leaving after images behind as it sped up. Rhodes had always wanted to name the scuttle crab's speed skill Godspeed, but couldn't decide because the name didn't quite fit the effect. With the distance between them quickly closing, Natsu couldn't hold back any longer, springing off the scuttle crab's back, Fire Dragon's sword horn. Natsu's body spun, enveloped by a vortex of flames, as he rammed into the leopard man's back. The leopard man staggered forward, rolled forward on the ground, landed on all fours, ran a few steps, and then continued to flee even faster. Hey! Weren't you all tough earlier? Why are you just running now? Natsu fumed, stomping his feet but having no choice but to chase after him. The scuttle crab carried Natsu once again, while Rhodes, Happy, and the other beasts followed behind. Seeing the leopard man dash out of the maple grove and approach the designated battlefield, Happy suggested. Rhodes, throw me over. All right. Rhodes grabbed Happy and, mimicking an athlete throwing a discus, spun once and flung Happy forward. Happy nimbly twisted in midair, adjusted his posture, grew his wings, and sped up, even overtaking the scuttle crab. Natsu. Happy grabbed Natsu by the shoulders. Maximum speed. Max speed. With Happy gripping Natsu, the speed increased again, carrying Natsu over the leopard man's head before letting go. Great job, Happy. Natsu twisted in midair and kicked. Fire Dragon's claw. The leopard man had no choice but to stop, crossing his arms to block the descending kick. His wrists were scorched by the flames on Natsu's feet. Answer my call, Krug. Before the leopard man could turn around, a group of Krugs burst from the ground, with one blocking his retreat while another dug underground. Then, merc wolves and raptors moved in, cutting off his escape from both sides. With no way out, the leopard man could only fight, and he chose the merc wolves as his target. They looked easier to handle. The merc wolves evaded nimbly, and whenever they got a chance, they lunged at his wrists. Natsu, of course, wasn't about to let the merc wolves take the blows. He rushed up in just a few steps. Fight me, you bastard. Fire Dragon's iron fist. The leopard man was forced to engage. Meanwhile, Happy encountered a small problem. Before he could land, his wings suddenly disappeared, causing him to crash into the grass and roll over, lying there seeing stars and unable to move. The extreme acceleration just now had been no small feat for Happy. As a person of honor, Rhodes took the great risk of circling around the battlefield to pick up Happy. Turns out you have some real moves, Happy. Happy groaned, still feeling dazed. Rhodes wanted to scold Happy, noting that with him in this state, the retreat plan he'd discussed on the way was useless now. But in the end, he didn't have the heart to say it. We'll take care of the rest. Rhodes looked at the battlefield. The leopard man was tangled up with Natsu and the merc wolves, unable to break free. But whether driven by instinct or because he had some awareness, he kept trying to eliminate the weaker merc wolves to make his escape easier. Rhodes seized the opportunity, flicking his finger upward. Krug. With a crack, a Krug burst from the ground, clamping its giant pincers around the leopard man's waist. Roar. The leopard man gripped the pincers at his waist with both hands, his arm muscles bulging, looking even more robust. Under his immense strength, the Krug began to show signs of loosening its grip. At this moment, Natsu jumped up, landing a punch on the leopard man's face. Snap out of it, you bastard. The leopard man's head jerked to the side, his cheek trembling under the force of the blow. Even from a distance, Rhodes could feel the power behind that punch. It looked eerily familiar, like the kind of punches he'd seen during bar fights. The leopard man's eyes showed a brief moment of clarity before turning completely blood red. His limbs, along with his neck, bulged with muscles, looking even more powerful. The leopard man then forcibly pried open the pincers of the Krug. He turned around, clasping his hands together, and delivered a heavy blow, shattering the Krug into 2 smaller ones. Rhodes frowned. Damn, he really has a second phase. Natsu, on the other hand, looked pleased. I knew it. Beating him up is working. A second phase was anticipated, so it didn't affect Rhodes' command. Merc wolves, retreat. Krug, grab his legs. Natsu. Got it. Natsu took a deep breath and, taking advantage of the leopard man's inability to move, unleashed searing flames, fire dragon's roar. Chapter 77, What was our mission again? The upper body of the leopard man was engulfed by flames, and two Krugs sent a retreat request to Rhodes. Maybe it was getting too hot for them. After all, Krugs were still bugs, not stones. Rhodes was worried that Natsu's attack might end up killing the target. In reality, though, Natsu knew when to hold back. He had a good sense of how much magic power the opponent could use for defense, how much of his own he needed to use for offense, and what the opponent's fighting habits were. With 2 short rounds of fighting, Natsu had already figured most of it out. This was something he was very experienced in. In contrast, Rhodes was far behind in this aspect. If he took on a bandit subjugation mission, there was a real possibility of someone ending up dead. Like last time when he caught a mugger on the street and casually ended up breaking their bones. His punches weren't exactly gentle. When the flames subsided, the leopard man's upper body emitted a scorched smell, his fur was curled, and some spots still had lingering flames. But he didn't fall. Instead, he roared up to the sky, smashing his fists to either side, shattering 2 Krugs and reducing them to 4 mini-Krugs. The mini-Krugs tried to continue following their grab-the-legs command but were quickly noticed by the leopard man, who kicked each one away with a powerful strike. 2 were kicked towards Natsu, and the other 2 towards Rhodes. With that kind of kick, the leopard man could have made a great soccer player. Force recall. Rhodes waved his hand, recalling the mini-Krugs and ordering an underground Krug and the one group originally blocking the path to attack. However, the Krugs couldn't catch up to the leopard man as he pounced on Natsu. Natsu raised his fist to clash head-on with the leopard man. This time, Natsu was knocked back a few steps. The second phase leopard man's strength was certainly remarkable. Raptors, feather shot. The raptors shot their feathers at the leopard man one by one to avoid injuring allies. The leopard man agilely retreated 2 steps, just about to leap forward again when his body suddenly staggered. His tail was caught by something. He turned to see 3 wolves biting into his thick leopard tail. Nice, Rhodes. Fire Dragon's iron fist. Natsu rushed up, his arms swinging as he rained fiery punches onto the leopard man's face and chest. Oh, oh, oh! Natsu roared as his fists flew. Snap out of it, you leopard bastard! Oh, oh, oh! The leopard man stumbled under the onslaught, growling in pain. Old Man Village Chief, Sister Snow, and Cloud. They're all waiting for you to come back. The red glow in the leopard man's eyes faded, replaced by a hint of clarity, but it started to turn red again. Get back to your senses. With a final shout, Natsu's last punch struck the leopard man square on the nose, sending him flying. The merc wolves released their grip as the leopard man, wrapped in spiraling flames, spun through the air and fell, bouncing twice before lying still on his back. It looked like they had won. But just to be sure, Rhodes ordered the merc wolves to stay hidden, the raptors to keep their distance, and the Krugs to burrow underground, ready to grab him if he made any sudden movements. Fortunately, the worst didn't happen. The leopard man's body began to glow, shrinking in size. His tail, claws, and other features all disappeared, returning him to the form of a young man. We did it. Natsu and Happy cheered in unison. Rhodes smiled. Finally done. Happy, can you move now? Aye. Since you called for a forced recall. Rhodes pinched Happy's face. Then why didn't you get up earlier? Happy mumbled, his speech muffled. Because it feels safe being protected by Rhodes. Rhodes let go of Happy's face. This kid really knows what to say. After lightening the tense atmosphere, the 3 of them went to check on the condition of the young man who had reverted back. This guy looked. Rhodes couldn't make out what he looked like, as Natsu had smashed his nose askew. His face was blackened, and his hair was all curled up. What a mess. Not to mention, his shirt and pants were long gone. He was left with nothing but a pair of large underpants. Happy asked. Is he related to Gray somehow? A freak like Gray isn't that common. Rhodes replied. The village chief mentioned that someone found Cheetah's torn clothes on the mountain a few days ago. Maybe they ripped during the use of takeover magic. Natsu enthusiastically said. Anyway, we've completed the mission to subjugate the Beast King. Let's take him back to the village. Happy added. Aye. This is the smoothest mission ever, and Natsu didn't burn down the village. We can finally get the full reward. What did you mean by that, Happy? Natsu glared. I meant, it's really great that we have Rhodes here. Are you calling me deadweight? Aye. You bastard. Natsu chased after Happy, running circles around Rhodes and Cheetah. You two might be celebrating too soon. Rhodes suddenly said. If I remember correctly, our mission was to subjugate a rampaging beast herd and a possible beast king. This mission is only halfway done. What? Both of them, still in the midst of their chase, stopped, their mouths agape, and Natsu pulled out the mission sheet to carefully double-check. Rhodes sighed. So, do you guys normally not remember what the mission actually is? No, because before we left, you asked Myra all those questions and made a ton of plans. Natsu explained word by word, staring at the mission sheet. I almost forgot everything that wasn't about fighting. Happy testified for Natsu. Natsu used to use his brain sometimes. But Rhodes took care of transportation, scouting, meals, resting, and battle plans. Rhodes was speechless. So, with me around, you two just put your brains on energy-saving mode, only taking them out when it's time to fight? Rhodes figured that if this kept up, he'd end up as the guild's head logistician sooner or later. With a bit more experience and power, he could even compete for Myra's position. Anyway, let's take him back first. Maybe if the village chief is happy enough, he'll just declare our mission complete. It was nearing noon, and smoke was rising from chimneys all over the village. Except for the village chief's house, where it had been quiet all along. Village chief, Panther sat idly in his living room, sometimes looking up at his son's memorial photo. Sometimes leaning on his cane, pacing anxiously across the room. Snow was busy looking after Warm, occasionally brewing fresh hot tea for Panther. Cloud was obediently waiting at home, just as Natsu had instructed, but soon after seeing Warm, she was attracted by its cute appearance. She wanted to reach out and touch you but didn't dare. Since the magical beast had been left by the wizard as an emergency communication tool, both Panther and Snow had forbidden Cloud from touching it. Warm didn't really mind playing with Cloud, but Snow had given it lots of little snacks. After all, eating was much more important than playing. Village chief. Village chief. A young man burst into Panther's home. They're back. The wizards are back. They've brought Cheetah with them. Cheetah is alive. The village chief, who had been pacing in the living room, suddenly stopped, his cane clattering onto the floor. The elderly man didn't bother to pick up his cane, trembling as he walked outside, moving faster and faster until he was almost running. Chapter 78, What a mess. Of course, Cheetah was carried back by the scuttle crab. Because of the severity of his injuries, Rhodes specifically instructed the crab to slow down a bit to avoid excessive jolting. Cheetah's wounds had already been simply treated with the hemostatic medicine and bandages Rhodes carried, and a cleaned wolf belt was draped over his waist. Neither Rhodes nor Natsu had brought spare clothes when they went up the mountain, so this was the only way to cover him up. The downside was that the current weather was rather hot. But luckily, it wasn't a long trip. As soon as they entered the village, Cheetah naturally drew a crowd. Cheetah was the best hunter in the village, and everyone had thought he was dead. Who could have imagined that he'd be brought back alive? Rhodes recognized a familiar face in the crowd and quickly called out, Mr. Mastiff, is there a doctor in the village? Please lead us there, his injuries are serious. Yes, and we caused most of them. Ah, yes. Mastiff immediately found someone else to take over his watch at the gate. This way, please. Someone else was already on their way to inform the village chief. The doctor carefully treated Cheetah's injuries and asked the village chief to have him carried back home with care. The doctor would come by every day for the next few days to help change his bandages. As one of the most respected elders in the village, the old doctor remarked that in all his years of practice, he'd never seen such a mess of injuries. There were animal bite wounds, sharp weapon cuts and stabs, blunt force trauma, and burns from fire. And every single type of injury was that severe. The most baffling thing was that Cheetah was somehow still alive. The doctor wanted to ask whether Cheetah went up the mountain to hunt or to test out weapons. Meanwhile, both Rhodes and Natsu, who were present, stared at the ceiling. It wasn't like they meant to be so rough, but they had to hit him hard enough to knock some sense into him. The only reason this guy was alive was because of the physical strength and resilience he'd gained by taking over the Beast King. On the other hand, without such a strong body, he wouldn't have survived such heavy hits. A vicious cycle. It was just his bad luck. When Cheetah woke up, it was already close to dusk. Natsu and Rhodes were sparring in the village chief's yard. Rhodes wanted to use more words and less action, but Natsu was not particularly skilled at explaining techniques. So, after agreeing not to use magic, they ended up causing quite the commotion while they fought in the yard. Happy and Warm were sitting at the entrance eating snacks and watching the show. Snacks are so tasty. Purr, but I want fish. Purr? Fish is the tastiest. The conversation between the two cute creatures was almost impossible for others to comprehend. At a certain point, Rhodes and Natsu stopped at the same time because they heard sounds coming from inside the house. Dad. Claude's voice, full of surprise. Dear, You're finally awake. Snow's joyful voice had a hint of sobbing. Thud. Panther struck the floor with his cane, letting out a snort from his nose. He was such a stubborn old man. It was a touching reunion for a family that had almost been torn apart, and no one wanted to disturb that moment. They waited at the entrance for quite a while until Panther asked, "Do you remember what happened?" Only then did Rhodes and Natsu knock on the door, entering after receiving permission. "Wizards, thank you, thank you." These words had already been said many times at the doctor's house, and Rhodes quickly helped the village chief sit down, telling him not to be so polite. Natsu ruffled Cloud's hair, telling her to go stay by her father's side. Rhodes noticed that Natsu seemed to be very good at comforting children. "Actually, we wanted to understand Mr. Cheetah's experience. This matter concerns the recent beast attacks on the village, so I apologize for the intrusion at a time like this." Rhodes kept a courteous attitude. "Please don't say that. If it weren't for you, my foolish son might not have come back at all." The village chief's tone was polite, but as soon as he turned to his son, his demeanor changed. "Hurry up and speak." "Yes, sir." After the recent ordeal, Cheetah didn't dare talk back to his father and started recounting his experience in detail. "That day, after my argument with my father, I took my weapon and went up the mountain alone in anger. I found the Beast King. I didn't dare act rashly and waited until it was asleep before shooting it with an arrow. That arrow hit its back, and if it were a normal beast, it would have died quickly. But the Beast King, its skin was so tough that the arrowhead barely pierced it. Not only did it fail to kill it, but it also enraged it. It immediately pounced on me. It broke my bow right away. I drew my hunting knife to fight it, but the knife got knocked away too. Then it pinned me down and tried to bite through my throat." Cheetah shuddered slightly as he spoke, still fearful of that moment. Panther didn't show any emotion on his face, but his hand gripped his cane tightly. Snow and Cloud seemed to visualize the scene, holding on to each other in fear. "Then I don't remember anything. It felt like I was dreaming. I dreamed I had become the Beast King. When I was thirsty, I drank from the mountain stream. When I was hungry, I hunted other beasts. At that time, I didn't seem to be able to think clearly. A voice kept telling me to fight, kill, destroy. I didn't know what to fight or destroy. Whenever I tried to think, my head hurt. But the voice kept shouting, so I kept thinking and kept having headaches. I don't know how many times I felt that pain before I suddenly thought of protecting the village and killing the Beast King. At that point, I didn't know what a village was or what a Beast King was, so I just kept searching the mountain for the Beast King. To kill the Beast King, whenever I saw a lone animal, I killed it. If I saw a wolf pack, I killed the strongest one." Natsu, happy, and Snow's eyes glistened slightly, feeling touched. But Panther and Rhodes looked at Cheetah differently. This man, even in his irrational state, remembered to protect the village and hunt the Beast King, showing his good intentions. The problem was, his actions had unintended consequences. It turned out that during those few days, all the beasts that ran down the mountain into the farmland or attacked the village were driven down by the sky. No wonder, when Rhodes had his scuttle crabs patrolling, many of the animals were just passing by the village, looking for new places to live. They simply couldn't survive on that mountain anymore. Whether they ended up at the village depended on whether they took the main path or a side path. In other words, before Cheetah went up the mountain, the occasional beast attack was due to some animals being pushed out of their territory by the Beast King, so they came down to try their luck. After Cheetah went up the mountain, the Beast King went on a killing spree, and the targeted animals had no choice but to flee downhill. And thanks to Cheetah's efforts, there were an overwhelming number of animals fleeing. Daddy is amazing. Cloud thought her father was incredible for hunting so many fierce animals all by himself. Ha ha ha. Cheetah, pleased by his daughter's admiration, got a little carried away. Panther felt an itch in his hand, and the cane in his grip longed to strike something. No, no. His benefactors were present. He couldn't be rude, and his son was still injured. He could wait until he healed. Chapter 79, Fairy Tale Wizards Are Too Responsible. I don't know how long those days lasted, but today, suddenly, I was attacked by a group of monsters. Then there was this terrifying creature covered in flames. It was like a fire dragon. I tried my best to run away, but I couldn't escape. Eventually, they cornered me, and something seemed to grab me, and after that, I don't remember anything. But I think I heard someone saying something about Cloud still waiting for me at home. And when I woke up, I was here, probably saved by my benefactors. No, you were actually beaten up by your benefactors. Cloud looked up at Natsu, her eyes almost sparkling with admiration. Natsu gave her a big, bright smile. Rhodes looked at him, thinking, are you really that proud after beating up her father? Oh well, I was involved too, so it's fine. Rhodes gave Cheetah a brief explanation of what had happened and then asked a few more questions. He then advised him to properly learn takeover magic once he recovered, and until he mastered the Beast King's soul. He shouldn't use it recklessly. Rhodes and Natsu then left the room, giving the family some privacy. In the end, we still didn't figure out how his takeover magic lasted for 8 days. Of course, it was because of his desire to protect the village and his longing for his family. Natsu's answer was idealistic. I'd rather believe it was because he experienced a burst of magic power when he first awakened the ability, and while transformed, he kept replenishing energy by drinking mountain spring water and eating wild animal meat. Happy nodded in agreement. Myra said that before she joined the guild, she couldn't change her arm back for a while. Purworm didn't understand, but he agreed with Happy. How could it be for such a mundane reason? It had to be because he wanted to protect his village and his family so much. Natsu insisted. Maybe there was some truth in it. The master always said that magic was the power of the heart. Perhaps a strong enough belief could indeed create miracles. Rhodes suddenly asked. Natsu, do you think takeover magic is easy to learn? How would I know? Why are you asking that? Because it's powerful. Look at Cheetah. Once he mastered takeover magic, he became so strong all of a sudden. Myra also used takeover magic to become an S-class wizard. Rhodes was tempted. An ordinary person, after taking over the Beast King's soul, survived a beating from Natsu and the wild creatures and was still alive. The strength boost aside, just the enhanced defense and vitality. Rhodes felt a sense of security just thinking about it. You'll know if you try it when we get back. Natsu said. I think your monsters are pretty strong too. True. Rhodes had read about takeover magic before and remembered the risk. If the target was too powerful, the user might lose control. Because of this risk and the difficulty of finding a suitable target, it was not his first choice. But after seeing Cheetah's transformation, he was really tempted. He even had a bold idea. What if he took over one of his summoned monsters? Takeover magic was typically called takeover, the soul of 20. But the definition of magic in the magical world was to take over a body. Generally speaking, the target being taken over was considered dead, which would mean killing the summoned monster. But Rhodes had never really seen one of his summoned monsters die. Perhaps he could exploit a loophole. There were also cases where users would voluntarily or involuntarily abandon the previous takeover. If the monsters were obedient and could be taken over or released at will, it might be worth trying. Due to the uncertainty about the mission's completion, Rhodes and the others had to stay in the village for the time being. On one hand, they needed to see if a large number of beasts would still come down the mountain to attack the village. On the other hand, they had to monitor Cheetah in case he lost control of his magic and became a danger to others. These few days, Cheetah was actually in high spirits. He not only survived and reunited with his family, but also gained a power that he could use to protect the village. Seeing his excitement, Rhodes had to repeatedly emphasize the danger of losing control over magic. Fortunately, after his near-death experience, Cheetah valued his family even more, and promised to study magic properly once he recovered, and to never use it recklessly. It was clear that he understood the consequences if he lost control in the village. Today was the 3rd day since Rhodes and Natsu brought Cheetah back. Over the past few days, Rhodes often sent scuttle crabs up the mountain to scout. After the Beast King disappeared, the wild animals had remained quiet for a day before starting to fight for territory again. Currently, the situation on the mountain had stabilized, and with the number of beasts significantly reduced, the predators had enough food and no real desire to come down. Yesterday, Rhodes also dragged Natsu up the mountain, taking care of some of the larger beasts that ordinary people would have trouble dealing with. What remained could be handled by the hunters if they used some ingenuity, like setting traps. Today, the villagers decided to go out and harvest their crops, and Rhodes went along as a bodyguard just in case. Luckily, nothing happened, and it seemed their mission was finally complete. By evening, the village chief organized a harvest celebration ahead of schedule, primarily to thank and entertain the fairy tale wizards. The villagers lit bonfires, cheered, danced, drank, and sang. Natsu and Happy had already joined in, with Natsu holding a torch and alternating between eating fire and breathing fire, attracting all the village children and young people. Worm had something in its mouth that no one could tell what it was, and was hopping around near the bonfire. Apparently, it wasn't too hot for it now. Rhodes sat quietly on the outskirts, sipping wine and eating meat. Having been a forelimbs untrained, clueless about Crops City dweller before crossing into this world, he found it hard to truly understand what the joy of a harvest felt like for the villagers. Was it like drawing a rare card? Like receiving a paycheck? Or like getting an acceptance letter? Mr. Rhodes. Village chief. Rhodes stood up and helped the old man to a seat. How is Cheetah doing? About the same. The doctor said it'll take at least 2 or 3 months for him to fully recover. The village chief looked at the celebrating villagers beside Rhodes. Mr. Rhodes, do you think they are too noisy? No, if anything, they're not noisy enough. Rhodes thought of the little bar back at the guild. I was just keeping an eye on the village's surroundings. The chief was taken aback. The village? Surroundings? Yes, it would be a real downer if beasts interrupted the celebration, so I kept watch to minimize that possibility. Oh, you. The village chief was at a loss for words. You've thought of everything. Actually, on the second day after Cheetah was brought back, Panther had already asked for the mission sheet to sign it off. But Rhodes insisted on being thorough, wanting to observe for a few more days, and even went up the mountain to take care of some difficult beasts. Fairy tale wizards were truly too responsible. Panther was filled with emotions. If his foolish son had just a tenth of Mr. Rhodes' caution, he'd retire right now and make his son the village chief. Chapter 80, Where's the guild master? Writing a reflection. They left the village the next morning. Cheetah was still lying in bed, so he couldn't come to see them off. Instead, Panther and Snow came out to say goodbye. Little Cloud ran in from outside, holding a large bunch of wildflowers she had picked for them. The petals were still damp with morning dew. A child running around so early in the morning wasn't safe. Rhodes decided not to say anything that would spoil the mood, instead smiling and accepting the flowers, and advising her to listen to her mother. The implication was that her father was unreliable, and listening to her mother might be a bit better. The village gate was wide open, with farmers occasionally driving carts and carrying tools out of the village. They would enthusiastically greet Rhodes and his companions as they passed by. Quack quack, a few geese passed by, and their honking startled Rhodes, making him take a step back. It took him a moment to remember that he was now a wizard, not a child whose combat power was less than that of a goose. Ahaha. So Rhodes is afraid of geese. Natsu, who had been trying to find Rhodes' weaknesses throughout the journey, finally had something to laugh about. No, I'm not. Happy also joined in with a giggle. PFFT. Rhodes is afraid of goose. I said I'm not. Ha ha ha. Natsu and Happy laughed together. Rhodes had no comeback. Fine, he's afraid. Let's see if they actually bring a geese to scare him. He'd cook it for sure. 2 minutes later, Natsu wasn't laughing anymore. Because they had boarded the carriage for the return trip. Rhodes pulled on Natsu's face and ruffled his hair, teasing. Come on, Natsu, say it with me, Rhodes is afraid of geese. Natsu leaned back weakly against the side of the carriage. I feel so sick. Happy, without any loyalty, joined in teasing Natsu with Rhodes. It hurts. Rhodes, call the crab. Natsu groaned. No, actually, besides being afraid of geese, I'm also afraid of crabs. Liar. Let me off. I want to walk back. Please. No, what if you get lost on your own? Since we're a team, I have to make sure you get back safely. Let me off. Driving the carriage back for Rhodes and his team were Bit and Mastiff. By noon, Rhodes had hauled Natsu off the carriage so that the drivers could make it back before nightfall. The rest of the way wasn't far, and they could ride the scuttle crab back, with a bit of sunlight not being much of an issue. Before reaching Magnolia, Natsu regained his energy. And when they finally saw the guild, Rhodes finally let out a sigh of relief, a smile unconsciously forming on his lips. But before he could even savor the feeling, Natsu had already kicked open the door. We're back. Oh, it's Natsu. What did you break this time? I heard you teamed up with Rhodes. You must have given him quite a bit of trouble, huh? Rhodes? Isn't he our guild's strongest newcomer? As soon as Rhodes entered the guild, he heard someone mention strongest newcomer. By his estimation, yesterday was Wednesday, which meant the new issue of Sorcerer Weekly had just come out, and it was also an anniversary special. Did that article really get published? Natsu was arguing with the others about how this time we completed the mission perfectly. Happy, meanwhile, was secretly spreading the story of Rhodes' fear of goose. Rhodes smiled and greeted everyone, telling them that what the magazine wrote was all nonsense. Without stopping, he headed straight for the counter. I'm back. Welcome back. Myra greeted him with her usual smile. How did the mission go? Rhodes handed her the mission sheet. There were a few surprises, but overall, it went well. Surprises? Yeah. It got sorted out, I'll tell you about it later. Oh my, that makes me even more curious. Myra finished logging the details. But it's good that you made it back safely. I was worried you might not get along with Natsu. Natsu? Well, he can be a bit of a headache at times, but he's reliable. Besides being a bit reckless, Rhodes found many of Natsu's qualities during this journey. For instance, his strong convictions, sharp combat instincts, and his care for others' feelings. As a companion, his reliability probably outweighed his tendency to cause trouble. right? Rhodes caught the bench flying towards him from behind without looking back. Over there, Natsu had started another fight for some reason. He threw the bench aside, turned around, and leaned his elbow on the counter. What mindset did I have when I just said Natsu was reliable? Myra laughed. Thank you for your hard work. Rhodes turned his head to look at her. On the way back, he had thought about what attitude to use when facing her, but once he returned, it felt natural to act the same as usual. What's wrong? Myra noticed his gaze and remembered what Lockie had told her before Rhodes set out, and she couldn't help but tuck her hair behind her ear. Nothing. Is the master in? The master? He's probably upstairs writing a reflection. Again? Who messed up this time? The Fairy Tale Guild was known for two iconic scenes, Nab staring at the request board and the master writing a reflection. This time it's Elfman. Myra looked a bit embarrassed. It seems he attacked the target he was supposed to protect during an escort mission. Huh? Rhodes almost didn't understand. The target to protect, not the one to fight? Yes, the one to protect. Myra said. Apparently, during a conversation, the target said the most important thing for a man is knowledge. Manliness. In the guild's bar, Elfman shouted his catchphrase as he punched Natsu, who then punched him back. With her brother fighting, his sister watched on with amusement. Whenever it's about being a real man, Elfman just can't hold back. Haha. Typical of him. Rhodes chuckled dryly, thinking that Elfman might have become this way because of what happened with Lisanna. Myra looked up at the railing on the second floor. It's strange. With all this noise down here, the master should have come down by now. It wasn't until Nab got thrown by someone and crashed into the second floor railing that a big hand reached out, grabbed him, and tossed him back down. Haven't you guys had enough? The master stood on the railing, scanning the room until he immediately pinpointed the culprit. Natsu, can't you come back peacefully just once? Hee hee. Natsu stood proudly, hands on his hips, with a satisfied expression. Wait. The master jumped straight down from the second floor, landing smoothly. With that look, what did you mess up this time? The master sighed, looking a bit resigned. Tell me now so I can just write both reflection letters in one go. Suddenly, Rhodes felt a bit sorry for the master. You're wrong, old man. Natsu said proudly. This time we completed our mission perfectly. How could that be? The master paused, then pounded his fist into his palm in realization. Oh, I see. You teamed up with Rhodes this time. Hey, old man. Natsu felt the master was being as unfair as happy, as if everyone thought he couldn't do anything right without supervision. The master ignored him and extended his arm, pulling Rhodes close, tears streaming down his face as he spoke emotionally. Rhodes, well done. And thank you. You're truly our strongest newcomer. So even you heard about that? Rhodes said awkwardly, also adding, Master, could you please not wipe your snot on me? Chapter 81, The Busiest Newcomer Master. Myra handed over a towel. Makarov waved it off. No need, it's already clean. Rhodes tugged at his clothes. Is that really polite? Makarov, happy not to have to write a second reflection, laughed. Ha ha, don't sweat the small stuff. Myra reminded him. But master, there are words on your face. Oh? Rhodes hadn't noticed it before, but now he did. He struggled to read. Rep.ent? The letters were reversed, making it hard to decipher. Ah, I must have fallen asleep while writing my reflection. Makarov wasn't embarrassed at all, casually taking the towel to wipe his face. Oh, by the way, Rhodes, come along with me. Poorly Uzuko has already finished the antidote. Great. Rhodes was delighted. Having the antidote meant he could safely summon the Grumps again, which would raise the safety level further. Of course, before going, he needed to go home and change clothes. On his way back, Rhodes also bought a copy of Sorcerer's Weekly. His rank wasn't high enough to receive a complimentary issue. Not like Myra, who always got one delivered to her doorstep. The 15th anniversary special wasn't an extra issue, just a thicker one than usual. The cover didn't feature a mage's portrait this time, but a beautifully crafted celebratory illustration. Rhodes flipped through it. Myra, Jenny, and others who participated in the performance had their own dedicated pages. As for Fairy Tale's strongest newcomer, he was just tucked away in a corner in the back, with only a photo of him and the scuttle crab. No solo shot. From this angle, the crab sure looks imposing. The interview itself didn't contain much distortion or embellishment. Just added some lines about looking forward to Rhodes' future achievements. Since it was only early afternoon, Goodman was still open. Hey, isn't it Rhodes? Haven't seen you in a few days. Brother Goodman, I had a task the past few days, it took a bit of time. Oh, becoming a real mage who can handle things on his own now. Impressive. Goodman had always heard Rhodes call himself an apprentice mage. Haha, sort of. Because he might have to train seriously for a while again soon. His home was the same as ever, but after a few days without ventilation, it smelled a bit strange. Maybe just his imagination. Rhodes opened the window, watered a few potted plants, hit the sandbag a couple of times, and then went to change clothes. It seemed like the house needed a bit of cleaning. Something to do in the evening. Walking in the street with Makarov drew a lot of attention. The 10 Wizard Saints, one of the 10 greatest mages on the continent, carried quite a reputation. People unfamiliar with him always added an honorific like Your Excellency when speaking to him. But for the people of Magnolia, Makarov's warmth far outweighed his dignity. After all, he was just as lively in his younger days as Natsu was now. With the master beside him, people were very friendly toward Rhodes as well. If they rode on the scuttle crab, the tables would probably turn. It would be the master getting attention because of Rhodes. Once they were out of town, Rhodes hesitated for a while before finally asking, "Master, is there any magic in this world that can bring people back to life?" Makarov turned and stared at him. "Why are you asking such a thing? I heard about Lisanna a few days ago. Myra and Elfman were both deeply hurt by it. I thought if there was a magic that could revive Lisanna. Cutting off the root of the problem might not be the right term, but it was indeed a way to completely eliminate Myra and Elfman's pain. Don't pursue such things." Makarov's tone was stern. "The value of life is immeasurable, and to desecrate it is a forbidden act. Not only legally, but the pursuit of resurrection magic itself is a taboo. It will lead you into an abyss from which there is no return." It was rare for Rhodes to see the master so serious, so he could only nod and promise to remember. However, Makarov wasn't reassured. Though Rhodes was usually steady, he had only just embarked on the path of magic and might not understand the severity of this issue. And sometimes, steady people could be even scarier when they lost control. Makarov continued. "I've heard stories of someone who, after losing a loved one, tirelessly researched resurrection magic, ultimately touching on the taboo of life. As a result, that person was cursed by the god Ankasram, and everyone they loved died." "God?" Rhodes asked. "Do gods actually exist?" "Of course. Ankasram, the god of life and death, and Kronos, the god of time, are both recorded in history," the master said. "But no one knows what they're really like, and they won't show themselves unless someone breaks a taboo." Rhodes frowned. Dragons and demons were one thing, but gods too? This world's mystery seemed deep. But following typical patterns, gods were probably just another kind of powerful being, right? No point thinking about it. He couldn't provoke them anyway. Listening to the master, Rhodes realized his knowledge of magic was still insufficient. He needed to keep reading books. Seeing that Rhodes seemed to have taken it in, Makarov breathed a sigh of relief and returned to the previous topic. Lisanna's situation. It was her choice. She stood in front of her sister and took that hit. She protected Myra and also awakened Elfman from his madness. Between her own life and her family, she chose to protect her family. I'm deeply saddened by her passing, but I'm also proud of Lisanna. She's someone I take great pride in. If I could, I'd willingly trade places with her, but I would never research forbidden magic. Not only would it endanger myself, but it would bring disaster to the guild. One moment he said that the value of life was immeasurable, and the next he was talking about trading his life for another's? Rhodes asked himself. Who would he be willing to risk his life for right now? No, before considering risking his life, he needed to think about getting stronger first. Without enough power, it was meaningless to even think about sacrifice. Master, I want to learn takeover magic. Huh? This kid? One moment talking about resurrection magic, and now switching to takeover magic? How did his mind jump to this? Why do you suddenly want to learn it? Because during the mission this time. Rhodes explained his reasoning, and Makarov said. You're concerned about your safety while summoning creatures to fight? There's really no need. Why? Because the quickest solution to that problem has already been tried. Makarov said. Everyone has things they're good at and things they're not. If there's something you can't do well, leave it to your companions, right? Teaming up with companions is the fastest method. Faster than learning any magic. That's true, but even companions can stick together 24/7. Rhodes said. I need to master some self-defense magic. Makarov sensed a different mindset in Rhodes compared to his own. Why consider that? Even if you know defensive magic, can anyone stay alert 24/7? Rhodes, this kid. Fine, if you want to learn, give it a try. But. Makarov thought about Rhodes' character and asked. You're aware of the risks involved in takeover magic, right? Rhodes nodded. A little bit. I'll study more before I begin practicing. I won't rush into it. Makarov nodded in satisfaction. He was confident in this. Rhodes was a careful child. He even wanted someone to supervise him when summoning Poro to mitigate risks. But soon he was conflicted again. Was this kind of personality ultimately good or bad? Chapter 82, Take over magic for just the basics. Having me as your tutor is fine, but after that. Makarov thought for a moment and said. Go ask Myra for guidance. Rhodes looked at him. Ask Myra? Yes, you already know, don't you? She used to be an S-class mage and practiced takeover magic. What I meant was, would it be okay for Myra? This much won't be an issue, she's a strong girl. Makarov replied. Besides, it's been almost a year since Lisanna's incident. Although such sorrow never truly fades away, we can't let her live in grief forever. Helping her heal and find a new direction is our duty as comrades. Even if Makarov hadn't mentioned it, Rhodes had planned to do so anyway. He was only worried that suddenly bringing up takeover magic might upset her. Myra's situation was complicated, and it needed a proper opportunity to discuss. Oh, and it turns out there's just such an opportunity. Rhodes asked. Master, do you know any good restaurants in Magnolia? Makarov was caught off guard for a moment. Torrent? You sure have a wide range of questions today. Hee hee. Rhodes smiled. They seemed unconnected, but there was some underlying relevance. The most expensive one is near the cathedral, the best tasting one is by the South Park, the best overall. Makarov laughed. Is our guild? Rhodes said in disdain. I understand your love for the guild, but saying that all of a sudden is really corny. Makarov actually blushed. You little brat with no sense of sentiment. Rhodes widened his eyes. Makarov blushing? But after a few seconds, Rhodes felt at ease. Just now in the guild, the old man had even wiped his nose on him. A bit of blushing wasn't a big deal. The old man was rather cute. Getting the antidote wasn't much trouble. Poorly Uzuka threw a small bottle at Rhodes and warned him not to misuse the poison even with the antidote. Rhodes, feeling cheeky, asked if there was a backup or a backup for the backup. Then poorly Uzuka promptly kicked him out and slammed the door shut. Forgot to ask about the cost. Rhodes realized his debts might have just increased a bit. The masters seemed to have other business with poorly Uzuka, so Rhodes thought it better not to disturb them. Once he learned takeover magic, he'd head out again to earn money and pay off his debts. September began with a light drizzle, falling from midnight until the morning. Along with it came a hint of autumn's chill. The evidence of the temperature drop was that Warm was willing to run around by Rhodes' side again. As a skilled budgeter, Rhodes, noticing the slight dip in temperature, bought a few autumn-winter clothes right away. Rhodes' money-saving tip: buy clothes out of season. Morning, Rhodes. Not riding your strongest summoned beast today? With the release of Sorcerer's Weekly a few days ago, Rhodes, the strongest newcomer, had gained a bit of fame around Magnolia. Especially on the days when he rode his crab to and from work, many people recognized him. Morning to you too. The strongest summoned beast likes a day off every Sunday, it's not always willing to carry me around. Rhodes maintained basic politeness, but fake news rolled off his tongue effortlessly. A summoned beast with a day off? Incredible. Yeah. With a spring in his step, Rhodes headed toward the guild. He was in a good mood today. In the past 2 days, he'd spent a lot of time in the guild's library reading about takeover magic. He was nearly ready to give it a try. Plus, he had lunch scheduled with Myra at a restaurant near South Park. According to the master, the food there was good, not too expensive, and there were lots of beautiful ladies. The downside was that most of them had male companions. The more Rhodes listened, the weirder it sounded. Wasn't that just a date spot? And it sounded like the old man frequented this restaurant and always stared at the pretty women? Is that how eternally youthful he was? The master sternly declared that he was just appreciating them. One couldn't help but wonder if Mikao and Wakaba had learned their bad habits from him during their younger years. In the morning, Rhodes did his usual cleaning. When he wasn't on a mission, he worked part-time as a server at the guild's tavern. Even after he could handle most missions alone, he didn't plan to quit this job. He'd already imagined it. One day, he'd be so strong, he'd be like Ursa, taking on an entire enemy guild by himself. When the last opponent fell and, with their final strength, asked him, Who are you? Rhodes would answer. Just a guy who serves drinks at the guild. He couldn't wait for that scene. The guild gradually grew lively, and suddenly Natsu came running to the counter with a mission flyer. Myra, I'll take this one. Rhodes, wanna team up? No, I've got plans today. Rhodes thought for a moment and asked. Why are you heading out again? Did you and Happy already spend all the rewards from last time? There's still a lot left from last time. Happy said. But this mission is to investigate a monster that suddenly appeared at the volcano. A monster at the volcano? That's right. Natsu clenched his fist, eagerly saying. Neil loved volcanoes, and this monster that appeared suddenly. It could be Gneil. I see. Rhodes recalled that Natsu had always been searching for his adoptive father, the fire dragon Gneil. Even if there was only the vaguest clue, regardless of the distance or the travel time, Natsu would grit his teeth and insist on going. Rhodes asked Myra. Is this kind of mission dangerous? Unknown monsters can be a bit dangerous. Myra reviewed the mission details, then smiled, saying, but this mission is only to investigate, not to exterminate. And the destination is a volcano. If it's Natsu, it should be fine. Natsu took the commission from Myra and rushed off, only to come running back at the door. Rhodes, you're really not coming? No, I'm learning magic with the master today. Rhodes glanced at Myra. And, well, I've got another thing planned. Sigh. Natsu left, looking deflated. Myra smiled. As expected of the strongest newcomer. Natsu has started to rely on you this quickly. Rhodes replied. I think he trusts my scuttle crab more. Shortly after Natsu left, Kana also came to the counter with a mission flyer. Myra, I want to take this mission. Okay. Myra glanced at it, recording it while asking. Kana, it seems you haven't worked in a while, right? Kana looked a bit unnatural. I haven't been drinking much lately, so I'm not short on booze money. Myra thought for a moment, then said. Speaking of which, the guild's liquor sales have dropped significantly recently. Kana pretended to be angry. Are you saying I alone support the tavern's revenue? Myra laughed. Just kidding. But you are one of our main patrons. At this moment, the master's voice called out. Rhodes, come to the yard. Coming. Rhodes waved at Myra. Myra, see you at noon. All right. Oh, see you at noon? Another date with Rhodes? Kana covered her mouth, saying dramatically. I'm so jealous. Chapter 83, The Soul of a Wild Creature. Are you sure you want to take it over? Makarov looked at the large, green crab in front of him. That will mean taking its body. Yes, I want to try. Rhodes nodded. Even if I take it over, as long as I release it within a certain amount of time, it shouldn't be harmed, right? I've already mastered the method to release it. Back when Rhodes first learned to ride a bicycle, he experienced the painful lesson of only knowing how to ride but not how to stop, always crashing into a wall to come to a halt. Naturally, he learned his lesson. Learning to stop before learning to skateboard, and asking how to brake before learning to drive. When he learned summoning, he was excited and only learned the forced recall later. Now, learning takeover, he wasn't about to make the same mistake. Mikro frowned but felt that Rhodes was trustworthy. If you're sure, then let's begin. All right. Rhodes placed one hand on the crab's head. Be good, don't resist. He closed his eyes, focusing on the flow of magic within his body, trying to match the state described in the books. At a certain moment, Rhodes opened his eyes. Take over. A blue magic glow poured from Rhodes' hand, enveloping the scuttle crab entirely. Immediately afterward, light patches flickered on Rhodes' body, and golden light enveloped him. The golden light only lasted for a short time. When it faded, Rhodes felt a large chunk of his magic power drained away. And then, nothing happened. Through the crab's eyes, he could see himself looking confused. Makarov said. It failed. Concentrate. Even a failed takeover uses up that much magic? Rhodes was disheartened. A failed attempt like this meant one less chance to practice in the morning. Of course. When magic reaches this stage, whether it succeeds or not, the magic power has already been consumed. Makarov asked. Why did you get distracted at the last moment? Well, I was worried it'd look ugly. Rhodes was a bit anxious. There are different kinds of takeover magic. Some people completely transform into the creature they take over, while others keep their original form with only some features of what they've taken over. Rhodes really didn't want to end up scuttling sideways like a crab. If you're worried about that kind of thing, then maybe takeover magic isn't for you. Makarov said. First, you have to believe in your own heart, and then it will respond to you with a miracle. But remember, it isn't really a miracle, it's just your heart. Magic is the power of one's heart. Believe in myself, believe in my own heart. Rhodes tried to ask himself, what did he want most? First strength, then style. If he could be strong enough, it wouldn't matter if he wasn't stylish. Because as long as he defeated his enemies, that'd be the coolest thing. But how strong could taking over a crab really make him? No, crabs have their own strengths. Also, the power of takeover magic, aside from depending on the creature being taken over, also relied heavily on the user's own magic power. If the master used takeover magic, even if he took over a common rabbit, he could probably kick most of the guild members into the sky with one blow. Believe. Take over. Light patches lit up, a flash of golden light, and the crab disappeared from its place. Rhodes' appearance changed dramatically. Hands, legs, and body, even his head, were covered by a hard shell. like he was wearing green armor. A pair of antennae stood up from his head, and his face seemed to be wearing a mask, his eyes glowing a faint yellow. His chest was protected by a thick shell, and the gauntlets extended from his fingers down to his forearms, appearing particularly strong. These were all things Rhodes could see for himself. After taking over the crab, he had a peculiar 360-degree field of vision, and he could see his entire appearance without needing a mirror. After seeing himself, he thought that this green armor looked quite cool. He used his fists to tap his chest and arms. The hardness seemed pretty decent. Makarov stood with one arm behind his back, the other hand raised in front of him, two fingers up, as if he was ready to subdue Rhodes at any moment if he went berserk. "Master, I'm fine." Makarov lowered his arm. "Good. How do you feel?" Rhodes moved around a bit. He felt more agile than usual. He raised his right hand, and the gauntlet glowed, transforming into a crab claw. As he opened and closed it, he could feel the power behind it. Rhodes tried moving his legs, and immediately he dashed forward, much faster than usual. He focused his mind, immediately using the crab's skill, and it seemed like after images were left behind as he moved. Is this phantom step? Rhodes got momentarily distracted, and with a loud crash, he smashed through the courtyard wall, charging straight out. It was, apparently, the same spot that the crab had smashed through last time he summoned it. What a coincidence. Rhodes was thrilled to find that crashing through a wall didn't hurt at all. "Rhodes. I'll fix it later." Rhodes' voice was carried away by the wind as he ran to the lake behind the guild. Swimming, diving, even standing on the lake surface. Taking over the scuttle crab automatically gave him mastery over water combat. Speaking of the crab, Rhodes focused his mind, sensing the summoner's rift. In the upper and lower river lanes, one crab was patrolling the upper lane, and the other hadn't disappeared but instead had entered a resting state, its main body submerged underwater with its antennae sticking out. This left Rhodes confused. This magic was supposed to take over the target's body, but what exactly had he taken over? Its respawn timer? Rhodes spent a while in the lake, getting familiar with this magic, then returned to the courtyard and undid the takeover magic in front of the master. Thankfully, there was no situation like Cheetah's where his clothes tore. Any discomfort? No, just that magic power is drained a lot. Feels like it uses more than summoning two scuttle crabs simultaneously. That's one of the drawbacks of takeover magic. Increase your magic power and get used to that form, and it'll improve. Makarov thought for a moment, then asked. "How's that crab doing?" Rhodes checked the summoner's rift. There were scuttle crabs patrolling both the upper and lower lanes. "It has recovered." "That's good." Makarov didn't say it out loud, but in his heart, he still felt a bit uneasy about the idea of taking over one's battle companions. "But master," Rhodes said, confused. "I only cancelled the takeover magic. I haven't performed the release step yet." "What? How could that be?" Makarov said in shock. "Could it be that, in your summoner's rift, there's actually a third crab? That shouldn't be." Rhodes had clearly seen the crab jump out of the water from a resting state. Could a new one have been spawned? Makarov thought for a while. "Well then, can you still use takeover magic right now?" Rhodes closed his eyes, and after a moment, opened them. Takeover. Familiar light patches appeared, and Rhodes transformed once again. Chapter 84, See, isn't it cool? So what will happen if you actively release the scuttle crab soul you just took over? Rhodes undid the takeover magic and then tried actively releasing it. It seems like nothing happened. A third crab didn't appear. Rhodes checked his own state. But now I can't transform into that form anymore. I've never encountered a situation like this before. Makarov frowned, thinking. Normally, if you actively release, another crab should appear. Try taking it over again. Alright. Rhodes followed the same steps as before. He summoned a scuttle crab and then took it over. He successfully transformed, and the crab entered a dormant state once again. After he cancelled the takeover magic, the crab recovered. And the next time he used takeover magic, it was unaffected. Even if he didn't actively release it, he could still summon two scuttle crabs. Though, it was a bit inconvenient with the pendant. In the scuttle crab form, the pendant was also protected inside his armor. Rhodes figured he needed to practice using summoning magic without having to hold the pendant. Just making physical contact should suffice. Your summoning magic was already a bit strange, and now your takeover magic is also odd. Makarov couldn't make sense of it either. Then again, magic wasn't something with a fixed form to begin with. Rhodes didn't want to be seen as some kind of weirdo, so he quickly said, "My script magic is completely normal." Makarov shook his head. It wasn't normal. It was weak. In any case, pay close attention to your physical condition from now on. Once you're sure there's no problem, try taking over something else. Alright, master. Then I'll go practice by the lake for a while. Rhodes, still in his scuttle crab form, took a step forward to dash out. However, in the next moment, a large hand grabbed him. Fix the wall first. Okay. Rhodes undid the transformation. Forget takeover. Master always had one move to handle him. Time to build the wall. If I can tear it down, I can build it. If it can be destroyed, it can be rebuilt. Rhodes, fairy tale's strongest rookie, muttered strange slogans as he took up the task of being a bricklayer. He was much more proficient than last time. Rhodes? What happened to you? As noon approached, Mara Jane noticed Rhodes looking a bit dusty, with mud stains on his clothes. I accidentally broke a wall and just finished fixing it. Rhodes said apologetically. Can you wait a moment for me? I'll be back soon. No problem, we have plenty of time. Mara Jane smiled. If you let Natsu and the others lead you astray, the master will get headaches. It was just an accident, really. See you in a bit. Rhodes quickly left the guild, and as soon as he was out, he used his crab armor and dashed away like lightning, leaving after images behind. Mara Jane covered her mouth, her eyes widening in shock. Was that? Outside the guild, two figures moved sneakily towards the entrance. One with thick eyebrows and big teeth, the other with a triangular head and square jaw. Just as they turned the corner, they saw a dark green figure flash past, startling them. Croft asked. What was that just now? Something green seemed to run past. Someone must have learned a strange magic, probably that guy Kike. Nikki said. Forget that, we need to see if Mara Jane and Rhodes are still around. Croft poked his head around the doorframe and saw Mara Jane sitting at the counter, deep in thought. Good, Myra's still here. They haven't left yet. The two exchanged glances. We made it in time. Action. That Rhodes guy was too much. Always taking Myra on walks or trips. And today he even asked her out for a meal. There were so many people in the guild who liked Myra. This was just cutting in line. They needed to teach him a lesson. So, by the time Rhodes had gone home, showered, changed his clothes, and returned to the guild to leave with Mara Jane, quack quack, two giant goose, about the height of a person, were waddling around in front of the guild entrance. They stretched their necks, glanced at Rhodes, then spread their wings and craned their necks. Quack? Quack? Rhodes looked puzzled at Mara Jane. Whose goose are these? They're huge. I didn't see them when I arrived. Mara Jane saw through the crude transformation magic immediately and guessed these two were trying to mess with Rhodes. Normally, she might have smiled and said she didn't know, just to see how Rhodes would react. But today, she had something she wanted to ask, and they were interrupting that, so her expression turned fearsome, probably some ingredients Mr. Cook ordered. Just kill them. Killing. Intent. The two disguised geese suddenly remembered that Mara Jane used to be called Demon. Coo. Quack. They took 2 steps back in unison and turned tail, running away. They reverted to their human forms a few meters away and continued running, realizing then that they should have cancelled the transformation immediately to avoid being killed. But it was just too embarrassing. That was Nikki and Croft, right? Rhodes recognized the two. What kind of game are they playing? Probably trying to scare you. Mara Jane said. Happy said you'd cry if you saw a goose, and now the whole guild knows. Happy. Rhodes gritted his teeth. That unreliable cat really went around spreading it. However, remembering the two fleeing in panic, Rhodes couldn't help but laugh. And they actually believed it. False information works. It can even guard against your own comrades. Mara Jane didn't seem too talkative today, and Rhodes realized it after trying to start a couple of ordinary conversations. Something on your mind? Mara Jane hesitated and asked. The magic you used when you went home earlier. What was that? You saw that? I was planning on telling you in a bit. Rhodes said. It's a takeover magic I just learned today. The full name should be Full Body Takeover, Wild Creature Soul. Scuttle Crab. As he spoke, Rhodes simply activated the magic, transforming into the armored form. How is it? Isn't it cool? Mara Jane seemed a bit dazed. This scene. She had seen it before. Take over Animal Soul. Take over Beast Soul. Big sister, look. Surprised, right? It's the same magic as Myra's. With us here, you won't be lonely anymore, will you? Yes, it was back then. Because she was afraid of being seen as a monster again, and having her brother and sister rejected by the guild members, she had intended to leave on her own. Back then, Elfman and Lisanna had shown her the takeover magic they had just learned in this same way. We'll always be together, even our magic will be the same. That's what Lisanna had said. She was always so gentle and kind. But Mara Jane gently bit her lip. Why did you suddenly decide to learn that kind of magic? People will think of you as a monster. Are there not enough weirdos in the guild? Rhodes hadn't realized that Mara Jane still cared about being thought of as a monster. The malice of those villagers all those years ago had continued to affect her to this day. Of course. 5 or 6 years ago, she was only 12 or 13, and had to be strong for her siblings. Maybe that's also why she kept competing with Rosa after joining the guild? Rhodes thought for a moment and said seriously. More than appearances or what others think, what I want is power right now. I want power that can protect myself and ensure I don't drag my teammates down when we team up. Beyond that, I want enough power to protect everyone. If people see me as a monster, well, I think this form is quite cool. And when I'm strong enough to stand in front of those I want to protect, I think that back view will be even cooler. Chapter 85, Pain is the beginning of healing to protect, huh? Just like how Big Sis used that power to protect us, now it's our turn to protect her. The memory of that time was vivid, but the person who said that was no longer here. The power that child once aspired to have, which should have been used to protect her, was also gone. Mara Jane extended her hand, smooth and fair, but it didn't seem as pleasing as the demon arm she had back then. Buzz Rhodes was surprised to see patches of light flicker across Mara Jane's body. It was a sign of activating takeover magic. However, those lights quickly faded away. Mara Jane's face turned pale, and her body softly leaned to the side. Myra. Rhodes released his takeover magic, gently catching her. Why did you suddenly use takeover magic? Mara Jane forced a smile. I knew it, I still can't do it. Seeing her like this, it wasn't just that she couldn't use takeover magic. Her magic power had significantly weakened. Magic is the power of one's heart. You have to believe in it. Rhodes wanted to repeat what the master had said, but the words turned into, don't push yourself. How about we sit over there for a while? The agreed-upon restaurant was still far away, but Rhodes had noticed a cafe nearby when he used his scuttle crab form, thanks to his panoramic view. A break would be nice. Rhodes had been using his takeover magic too frequently today, and was also feeling tired. With her depleted magic power, Mara Jane was unsteady on her feet, and had to lean on Rhodes as they walked into the cafe. To onlookers, they looked just like a close couple. But in this situation, Rhodes couldn't feel happy at all. Welcome. Could we get a quiet spot, please? This way, please. Guided by the server, they sat down in a quiet corner and casually ordered some drinks. Mara Jane seemed downcast. Sorry, I suddenly caused you trouble. Haven't I always been bothering you too? No, wait. Rhodes cleared his throat and attempted to imitate a broadcaster's tone. Serving Miss Mara Jane is my honor. Please, feel free to trouble me as much as you like. Does that sound more considerate? Mara Jane managed a smile. When did you learn this from Loke? Rhodes looked regretful. I wish I could learn a few moves from him. Unfortunately, he runs away whenever he sees me. Speaking of which, Mr. Hibiki once tried to impart this kind of knowledge to you. When was that? Rhodes was startled. Had he missed a treasure? Mara Jane thought for a moment. It was the day he helped you learn a common language. Right, you couldn't understand what he was saying back then, so the master declined on your behalf. Rhodes feigned regret, complaining a bit dramatically. Why did the master do that to me? Would it still be possible if I went to ask Mr. Hibiki for after-sales service now? Mara Jane finally laughed. But Blue Pegasus is very far away. That's a minor issue. Rhodes was determined. They might charge extra. No problem. It could be a headache. Then forget it. Rhodes immediately gave up, forcefully cramming knowledge into your head. That's no fun at all. If I had to choose now, I would definitely opt to learn from Miss Myra for several more months. Why did I have to rush for a language package back then? So dumb. I despise my past self. Mara Jane didn't respond. She wasn't sure if Rhodes meant what she thought he meant. She feared she was guessing right, yet she also feared she was overthinking. Your coffee. The waiter always seemed to arrive at just the right time. Rhodes didn't think so, though, as he added sugar, and then some more sugar. That's too much, isn't it? Mara Jane asked. I like it sweet. How much sugar do you want? Just 1 cube. Too much, and I'll gain weight. Rhodes didn't understand why even Mara Jane had such worries. Aren't we wizards capable of eating slimming mushrooms? Mara Jane slowly stirred her coffee with a small spoon. You still haven't told me the details of your last mission. It was partly business and partly personal. On the business side, it was expected that Rhodes should report to the guild about the general progress of completing the mission. Some strict guilds might even require a formal report. But Fairy Tail had no such rules. No progress report was needed at all. On the personal side, Mara Jane was a bit curious about what Rhodes meant by encountering some unexpected events during the mission. In such cases, how much was said depended on whether both parties had the time and were willing to share with Mara Jane. So, Rhodes chose to start from when they left the guild. When he mentioned how Natsu set a field of crops on fire just to fight some wild boars, Mara Jane laughed. That sounds just like him. When Rhodes talked about how he had sent his Krugs to dig a fire break with Natsu, Mara Jane said, "That sounds just like you." But when he brought up the Beast King, Mara Jane's expression turned unnatural. Rhodes hesitated for a moment, wondering if he should continue. Remembering his conversation with the master that day, he decided to go on. The Beast King. Near-death crisis. Takeover. Losing sanity. Going berserk and causing destruction. Mara Jane grabbed her left arm with her right hand. The story was so similar that she almost suspected Rhodes had made it up. Rhodes forced himself to finish telling the part where Natsu managed to bring Cheetah back to his senses. Really? He woke up? That's great. Mara Jane was genuinely happy for Cheetah and his family. But each time she recalled such scenes, thinking of Lysana standing in front of her, the grief and regret surged up. Mara Jane lifted her left arm as well, hugging herself, her body trembling. This time, Rhodes didn't have a jacket. Instead, he chose to circle around the table and sit next to Mara Jane. His hands hovered slightly before falling, then lifted again, hesitating as if they weighed 1,000 pounds. Rhodes ultimately wasn't Loke or Hibiki. He couldn't casually put an arm around someone. He gently patted Mara Jane's back. "Can you tell me about it? About Lysana?" Mara Jane spoke softly. "You already know, don't you?" "I've heard a bit. She seemed like a cute girl, a bit delicate." "No. She wasn't delicate at all. Lysana, she..." Mara Jane realized she had overreacted and stopped herself in time. But the sudden raise in her voice drew curious glances from around them. Rhodes stood up, raising one hand in apology. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." "I know. It's because I misunderstood Lysana, right?" Rhodes said, "I'm the one who should apologize." "What kind of person was she?" Mara Jane's trembling slowly stopped, and her thoughts drifted from that painful night to even earlier times. Lysana was a strong child. She always had been. When the villagers treated us like demons, it was always her standing up for me. As Mara Jane spoke softly, Rhodes' anxious heart finally eased a little. The pain of losing a loved one can sometimes make a person feel completely shattered. It's a feeling that lingers for a long, long time. Maybe for the rest of one's life, never fully disappearing. All we can do is try to accept it, work hard to overcome negative emotions, and gradually rebuild ourselves. Pain, after all, is itself a process of healing. When someone is willing to talk about a lost loved one, it marks the best beginning for recovery. Rhodes wasn't sure if it was Cheetah's story that resonated with Mara Jane or if nearly a year's time had helped her begin to heal. Or maybe his misunderstanding of Lysana had momentarily stirred up Mara Jane's desire to defend her sister. Either way, Rhodes' long-pondered plan to help heal Myra's heart had finally started to take shape. Chapter 86, I understand the Strauss siblings' parents passed away early, and Elfman and Lisa were practically raised by Mara Jane. Back then, the three siblings relied on each other in a small, remote village, occasionally receiving some help from the villagers. Life was tough, but there were still small moments of warmth and touch. As Mara Jane spoke about their impoverished life, she couldn't help but smile. Even when she mentioned being treated as a demon by the villagers, she didn't express any resentment towards them. Instead, she focused on how Lysana defended her. When she was scolded, Lysana would argue loudly for her. When she was hit by a stone, Lysana would throw it back, worrying if she was hurt. Lysana was strong, kind, and always tried her best to protect her sister. Compared to her, Elfman seemed almost too gentle in his nature. Rhodes listened quietly as Mara Jane recounted their journey of leaving the village and joining the guild. He heard her talk about Ursa, Kana, Natsu, and Gray from back then, but the focus wasn't on them, it was more on how her younger siblings interacted with these people. One ordinary event after another, showing that when she first joined the guild, most of her heart and mind were on her younger siblings, fearing they might be mistreated. Although she eventually realized there was no need for such worries within the guild. But I ruined it all. I killed Lysana with my own hands. I trapped Elfman in endless guilt and remorse. The warm, beautiful memories stopped abruptly. Mara Jane held her forehead with one hand, tears streaming down. If I hadn't taken that mission, if I had been as cautious as you are back then, if... Mara Jane briefly leaned on Rhodes' shoulder before quickly sitting back upright. Actually, she could always rely on it. Rhodes silently pulled out some tissues and handed them to her. No blame for Elfman at all, just an inability to forgive herself? Just earlier, she spoke about Lysana's kindness, and Elfman's gentleness. Their family's genuine kindness clearly runs through all of them. Once her sobbing had subsided and she wiped away her tears, Rhodes spoke. Back then, did you give it your all? Did Elfman fight against the Beast King's consciousness before he hurt Lysana? When Lysana did what she did, was she scared or regretful? The answers to these questions were obvious, and so was Rhodes' point. At that time, all three of them had already done everything they could. Using guilt, regret, and self-blame to punish yourself can't change what has happened, nor will it make the future any better. So, try to forgive yourself. I understand. Thank you. Mara Jane put on her usual smile. I feel much better now. This was a lie. A lie meant not to let kind intentions go to waste, to avoid worrying those around her. She, just like Lysana, whom she always praised, was a kind person who always thought of others. That's good. Rhodes didn't expose her. How could a heart not be untied with just one conversation? The progress this time was already very encouraging, at least she was willing to talk about Lysana. Mara Jane reached for her coffee cup, but Rhodes took it from her. She looked at Rhodes, puzzled. Rhodes pushed his own cup towards her. You've already had enough bitterness. Try something sweet. Before Mara Jane could decide whether to drink it, Rhodes had already taken a sip of her coffee. I got a taste of your bitterness. Next. Rhodes put down the cup. Add more sugar. Mara Jane took a small sip of his coffee. Sweet. She smiled with a hint of distaste. Too much sugar. Rhodes spoke matter-of-factly. I like it sweet. Then. Mara Jane gently put down the coffee cup. If you took my coffee just to add sugar, what's the point of the exchange? The point is making it sweeter? It couldn't have just been about switching for switching's sake. Rhodes seemed calm on the surface, but his ears were already burning. Even he couldn't understand where he got the courage to make the switch like that. He thought for a moment, then asked. How about switching back? No, that one's practically sugar water now. Mara Jane gave him a glance, then inconspicuously looked out the window. Drinking and swapping, drinking and swapping. That would be even weirder. Oh. They spent quite a bit of time at the cafe, and Mara Jane had almost fully recovered her energy. The two headed to the planned restaurant in the southern part of the city, the atmosphere much more relaxed. The southern part was an area Rhodes seldom visited, so Mara Jane introduced him to where the best deals were, which shopkeepers only gave discounts to beautiful women. That's such blatant favoritism. Rhodes said. So, could I ask you to buy things for me in the future? Sure thing. How about I wear something a little more revealing when I go? Forget it, that sounds like too much trouble. Rhodes thought about it, then added, how about you teach me transformation magic? I could transform into Jenny and buy stuff. Mara Jane's eyes curved into a smile. Sure, you're terrible, Rhodes. Rhodes shook his head. Knowing I'm terrible, but still agreeing. You're just as bad. The Slice Slot restaurant, located near Magnolia's Southern Park entrance. The name was a bit of a tongue twister, so regulars liked to call it Threshold or the Beginning. The idea being that coming here meant stepping into the threshold of happiness or finding the beginning of beautiful love. The master hadn't told Rhodes any of this, he found it all out on his own. As for whether Mara Jane knew, Rhodes didn't know. At least she hadn't refused. My, what a lively place. Most of the patrons were couples, and Mara Jane looked at Rhodes. Why choose this place? Because of its good meaning, of course. But I couldn't say that, so Rhodes chose to pass the buck. It was recommended by the master. He said the chef here is very skilled. Mara Jane smiled sweetly. Is that so? Of course, every word is true. Rhodes held up a hand. The master said it was great here. The master, after all, was always the one everyone relied on to take the blame when needed. Normally, Rhodes, don't cause trouble, so pinning this on him shouldn't be an issue. Mara Jane nodded. Every word is true, huh? So, not completely, then. But clearly, the master was involved. Better limit his drinking when we get back. And push for that report he owes. He should also complete the guild's mission statistics for last month himself. Welcome. We have a reservation. This way, please. Rhodes and Mara Jane, blending in with the other couples, followed to their reserved table. The menu here, like at the guild, was very eclectic. Rhodes glanced at Mara Jane, regrettably flipping past the front, Sweet Couples Special Set, Eternal Union Set, and other enticing-sounding meal deals. He ordered 2 dishes he liked and one that Mara Jane might like, then asked for her opinion. Chapter 87, I want you to help me train the master wasn't lying. The food at this restaurant was really good, and the atmosphere was fantastic. There were indeed many beautiful women here. Although most of them had partners, occasionally coming here to feast one's eyes like the master did wasn't really a big deal. As long as you weren't afraid of getting smacked. Rhodes could guarantee that while eating, He wasn't glancing around because he felt fully satisfied just occasionally looking at the person in front of him. Today, Mara Jane was wearing a black long dress. Besides a ribbon around her neck, there were no other decorations. Her hairstyle was the same as usual, only the elastic band tying her hair matched her black outfit. Simple, but beautiful. Mara Jane suddenly paused, wiped the corner of her mouth with a napkin, and asked, "Do I have bad table manners?" Rhodes said, "Not at all, you're very normal." "Why do you ask?" He couldn't think of a word to describe her table manners at that moment. She took a small mirror out of her purse. "Because you've been looking up at me, I thought I had something on my face. Is it possible that I just wanted to look at you?" Rhodes thought for a moment before saying, "Because you always have the same hairstyle unless you wear a hat. I was wondering what you'd look like with your bangs down." Mara Jane blinked, took the small elastic off the top of her head, and let her bangs fall over her forehead, smoothing them down gently. She looked at herself in the mirror, saw nothing wrong, and looked up. Like this? The last time he'd only caught a brief glimpse, thinking it would look nice. But looking at her in detail this time, it was stunning. Too beautiful. I want Ritas to paint it exactly as it is, though I doubt he could do it justice. Rhodes had to wonder if her usual hairstyle was meant to suppress her overwhelming beauty. Though, she always looked great. Oh, that's too much praise. A bit flustered, Mara Jane quickly tied her hair back up. Rhodes felt a twinge of regret. Lunch ended in a nice atmosphere, and Rhodes prepared to get up to pay. "Wait a minute." Mara Jane called to him. "What's wrong?" "That looks like Loke." "Loke?" Rhodes wanted to say how they always seem to run into acquaintances, but then he thought about it, and it made sense. Meeting Loke in a place like this makes sense, right? Mara Jane gave him a pointed look. "You do know it's a place like this." Rhodes wasn't guilty at all. "I only found out it was that kind of place after coming here." Without even turning around, "I can guess he has 2 girls with him again." Mara Jane denied. "No, a third just arrived." There was even a hint of excitement in her voice. Mara Jane's strongest magic might not be Satan's soul, but rather the power of gossip. "A third? Isn't that a love triangle mess?" Rhodes got excited too. Was this guy about to crash and burn? "Quick, let me borrow your mirror." "Why use a mirror?" "He runs away whenever he sees me, and then I miss all the drama." "Hurry." Rhodes even scooted over to make room, patting the empty space next to him. "Come here, let's watch together." Sure enough, Mara Jane also worried that Loke would escape, and she quietly stealthily moved next to Rhodes, taking out the small mirror she just had. The two of them leaned in together, openly spying. They saw a girl sitting beside Loke and another sitting across from him. It seemed like the two of them were fighting over who got to feed Loke.